Good evening. I'd like to call the council meeting of Monday, November 6th, 2023 to order. Can everyone rise for the playing of the national anthem?
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. Carton-bras et porter le pays, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Niagara Region and Grimsby are situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattaway-Wendoronk, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The regional municipality of Niagara and the town of Grimsby stand with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. Any disclosures of pecuniary or non-pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we need a mover and seconder for approval of the agenda. Moved by Councillor Freg, second by Councillor Baradzi. Councillor DeVoley?
And Councillor.
Yeah.
May we lift from the consent agenda the Community Services Committee meeting minutes to discuss an item on there?
Yeah, this is just for the agenda that can be lifted at
Okay.
that time.
Thank you.
Councillor Sharwa?
Through you, Mayor Jordan, thank you. I just wanted to see, there was my notice of motion last week for the e-scribe is still listed as a notice of motion when it should be under resolutions this week. So just asking that we put it under resolution.
The clerk will explain.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, what we did was we reviewed the minutes, or reviewed the tape from last meeting, and it was noted that you asked that notice of motion come tonight as a notice of motion. You stated November 6th notice of motions. So we did that because I couldn't unilaterally just move it. So that's why it ended up a notice of motion this evening.
Great. So now we have Councillor.
Sorry, can you explain that again? I didn't ask for it to be noticed up from November the 6th. It was supposed to be a motion this week.
No, you didn't ask. The mayor did the night of the meeting, which he said it out loud, and you can listen to on the tape. We listened to the tape to decide where it went, and he actually said that it'd be a notice of motion on November 6th. So that's where we placed it on the agenda according to the chair's ruling.
I understand that. However, it's incorrect procedurally, so I'm going to ask that it's actually placed in the order that it's supposed to be, not based on the mayor's it was the wrong ruling. So if it's the wrong ruling, I'm asking that you correct it.
If you'd like to address the resolution this week, I'd allow it to stand that way.
Thank you, appreciate it.
All right, moved by Councillor Frick, second by Councillor Bradzi. Resolved that the November 6, 2023 council meeting agenda be approved. All in favor? That's carried. All right, tonight we have Graham from Jillian's Place tonight, giving us a presentation on gender-based violence and intimate partner violence. Welcome, Graham. Oh, you're already at the podium. Very efficient. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Unfortunately, our executive director, Nicole Regier, who is to be co-presenting with me this evening, is unable to due to illness. But on behalf of Jillian's Place, we express our heartfelt thanks to be here tonight to present about Jillian's Place, gender-based violence, and what we can do in our community. And thank you so much to Mayor Jordan for raising the flag, the first municipality that Jillian's Place serves today. We're very thankful for that. And I get my own slide person today, so thank you. Jillian's Place is an agency that serves individuals and families experiencing gender-based violence. Our mission is to work with and empower people experiencing gender-based violence by providing a safety and support through a variety of services and raising awareness about the root causes to end the cycle of violence. And since 1977, we've grown from a small 8-bed volunteer-run shelter to a multi-site provider of free and confidential services that empower survivors to break the cycle of violence and abuse. You'll see on the screens before you, that includes an emergency shelter in St. Catharines that currently has 34 beds, but we're much more than just safe shelter. We offer a broad spectrum of compassionate, client-centered, trauma-informed services that are available to survivors in North and West Niagara, which includes a 24/7 crisis support line that individuals can phone or text on, compassionate one-on-one and group counseling, child and youth programs, legal advice and support. We are we're the first shelter in Ontario to employ a full-time family law lawyer, and that program is entirely donor-driven and wouldn't exist without community support. Second stage housing, which is supported second stage housing, transitional housing and support, community education, violence prevention programs, and I always like to point out employee wellness program too, because it takes some really dedicated frontline service staff to support our vulnerable clients. Next slide. About us, Jillian's Place welcomes all clients with and without children and dependents. Jillian Place respects human rights. We are a place where two-spirit, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, intersex, asexual, aromantic, and all gender and sexually diverse folks are welcomed and supported. We offer physically accessible locations for folks of all abilities. We utilize a trauma-informed, client-centered lens for providing support, and we aim to create and maintain safe and safer, judgment-free spaces for our clients and staff through a commitment to unlearning and relearning. We apply a harm reduction approach to our services for folks who use substances. Next slide. And what is gender-based violence? Gender-based violence is commonly referred to its acronym, GBV, is violence that is committed against someone based on their gender identity, gender expression, or perceived gender. It is the types of abuse that women, girls, two-spirit, trans, and non-binary people are at the highest risk of experiencing. Some examples of GBV, so it is an umbrella term, and we have obviously domestic violence and family violence, intimate partner violence, sexual violence, trafficking, sadly elder abuse, anti-transgender violence, honor killings, forced marriage, femicide, violence against women in media and journalism, and teen dating violence. There's a lot of subsets of abuse as well, and it's all rooted in power and control, and it truly is a cycle. Physical, sexual, psychological, emotional, financial, economic, spiritual, verbal, technological and cyber, stalking, and gaslighting. And abuse involves patterns of behavior intended to establish and maintain power and control over partners, family, individuals, or groups, no matter the age, gender, socioeconomic status, or ethnicity. Anyone can experience abuse, and abuse is all rooted in coercive control. Coercive control occurs when a pattern of threats, assault, intimidation, or humiliation is used to scare, punish, or instill fear. Sadly, we need to talk about femicide, which is the most heartbreaking form of gender-based violence. Femicide is defined by the Ontario Association of Interval and Transition Houses as the intentional murder of women and girls because of their gender. Femicide includes women and at times their children or girls that were killed by a man and or men who are either a former or current intimate partner, a family member, someone known to them, or in some cases unknown but still targeted. The rate of gender-related homicide for women and girls in Canada was more than 2.5 times greater in rural areas compared to urban areas. In the past 5 years, there have been over 850 deaths of women and girls in Canada. This equates to 1 to every 48 hours. These deaths are preventable tragedies that have devastating effects on entire families, communities, and friends. As of September 30th, there have been 46 femicides confirmed in Ontario in the past year, and sadly in October, we know that this number has continued to increase, including very close to home here in Grimsby. Next slide. Safety planning. Due to the known risks that are for our clients living in our shelter, our second stage homes, or the community, every client receives a safety plan. A safety plan is a set of actions to help lower the risk of being hurt by a current or former abusive partner. At Jillian's Place, we utilize the Jackie Campbell Danger Risk Assessment, which assesses the risk for lethality by a client's abuser. Each safety plan is created individually with the client, accounting for their unique situation and helping ensure for their safety, and is reviewed continually. If you or someone you know is worried for their safety, you can call or text our 24/7 support line to discuss your options at 905-684-8331. Jillian's Place is very proud of the services and spaces we offer to survivors and their allies in West Niagara. These programs provide a direct link to our shelter, further outreach support, and violence prevention programs in our St. Catharines location. Survivors in rural communities like West Niagara experience disproportionately high rates of violence and abuse, along with facing complex and challenges and barriers when accessing vital and life-changing supports. Rates of police-reported IPV experienced by rural women in Canada are 3.5 times higher for rural men, and 75% higher than those for urban women. In 2018, Jillian's Place acquired West Niagara Second Stage Housing and Counseling in Beamsville, and since then we have been able to expand our outreach services to those in Lincoln and Grimsby. For folks living in these communities, they are at increased risk of gender-based violence. Frighteningly, women in rural communities are 3 times more likely to be victims of domestic homicide or femicide, and Indigenous women in rural communities are 5 times more likely to experience IPV than those living in urban communities. Next slide. There are unique social and geographical contexts of rural communities that help fuel gender-based violence. These include traditional family and gender role views, example, a man as a head of a household and breadwinner, woman as homemaker, and domestic violence as a private family matter. There may be greater acceptance of violence and victim-blaming attitudes. In many rural communities, religion plays an important role, where teachings may sometimes support the importance of maintaining marital bonds. Strong traditions and community values around firearms, hunting, and target practice traditions are more liberal. Gun safety views contribute to greater access and use of firearms in domestic violence cases, increasing the risk for lethality. Abusers are 2 times more likely to have access to a firearm and 2.5 times more likely to use a firearm to kill their partner. 1 in 3 rural domestic homicides were committed using firearms. There are geographical and social isolation in rural communities due to long distance to access any domestic violence services or even neighbors who might be able to help. Slow emergency response time due to distance and few emergency responders, public visibility / of lack of privacy, anonymity, and confidentiality due to smaller populations, which contribute to dual relationships or familiarity with service providers, police, and law enforcement. Economic and environment issues, poverty, low levels of education, and high unemployment, farming responsibilities, and generations of family farms are just a few to name. Next slide. Rural realities, there certainly just is a lack of options. There is a lack of emergency shelter and supported second stage housing. There is no emergency shelter between St. Catharines and Hamilton for survivors of gender-based violence, and very limited supported transitional housing. There's also, as you know, a lack of affordable, accessible, and safe housing, lack of practical, efficient, and effective transportation, and inconsistent connectivity, cell coverage, and Wi-Fi, which makes it very difficult to call 911. Next slide. This is for the fiscal year 2022 to 2023, our overall Jillian's Place service numbers. So 293 lived in our emergency shelter in St. Catharines, 166 adults, 127 children. Over 10,000 crisis calls and texts were answered. And then on the right-hand side, you'll see our community outreach services. So over 2,000 were supported through those programs. 260 received transitional housing and support. 386 attended outreach counseling. So these are folks living in the community, not residing in our safe shelter. 681 were supported through our legal program, and over 630 clients were supported through our partnership with Family and Children's Services Niagara, which is called the Domestic Violence Response Initiative, and over 100 children were seen by our child and youth counselors for exposure to abuse, and that is on top of the 127 children supported through our shelter services. So over 12,000 life-changing supports through Jillian's Place last year. Next slide. In terms of our West Niagara services, so these are the services offered through our Beamsville location. Currently, we have 3 transitional units in West Niagara. 5 women and 3 children are currently living in those and receive ongoing support. We have 36 women and children living in West Niagara that are currently receiving counseling outreach support, and 68 clients are currently actively being supported by our transitional housing support worker, with over 135 clients being supported since the start of the year. On your right, we have the Mobile Tracking Emergency Response System, which is a program that is collaboration but coordinated by Victim Services Niagara. And the Mobile Tracking Emergency Response System is an example of a collaborative effort to enhance the mechanisms and strategies for safety for victims at risk of personal danger arising out of domestic violence, sexual assault, and/or stalking. This program offers a GPS tracking system as part of an enhanced safety plan to those who are at high risk of being re-victimized by the accused. And currently there's 2 residents in Lincoln using the METERS program, and 29 individuals since September 2022. Next slide. And just to show you a little bit about the increases that we have seen, we've often been saying that we've been responding to not only a prevalence of increases in gender-based violence, but also the severity and complexity of client cases. The years since the pandemic have become deadlier for women, girls, and gender and sexually diverse folks. Jillian's Place and her sister shelters are very concerned for the safety of women and gender and sexually diverse folks in our communities. Since January 2022, sadly, we have had to redirect over 50% of the survivors who turn to us for just safe shelter alone. We say redirect very loosely. We would never turn someone to the streets, but we do have to triage on risk of lethality and danger. We do a lot of shelter movement within our shelter, utilizing hotel rooms, and also partnering with other shelters, but the shelters in our area are also experiencing backlogs and overcapacity situations as well. Across our program since the start of the pandemic, we have seen a 90% increase across all areas of programming. Next slide. Our response, while we're doing everything within our current context to meet the demand, our St. Catharines facility is no longer able to effectively and efficiently meet the demand, nor does it reflect the trauma-informed and compassionate care that we aim to deliver. We typically operate above our funded capacity, and in doing so, we have to convert non-bedroom spaces into makeshift bedrooms to house survivors. And so we have launched our Build a Safer Future capital campaign that will fundamentally transform the level of care we're able to provide to survivors in North and West Niagara. The project is having us net 10 additional beds and 5 private bedrooms. We will be adding private bathrooms to all client bedrooms, and we will be also extending the building with a 9,000 square foot addition, which will be known for this as the Center for Violence Prevention and Outreach Support. Again, when we moved to this building in 2008, the outreach services that we provided to the community were very limited in scope, or either did not exist at all, and they've grown anywhere from 40 to 60% in demand. 3 little offices are handling caseloads of over 2,000 clients per year. So this extension is really needed, and it reflects, the level of service that we're providing to our community today. In total, it is an $8 million project, and to date, we have raised over $5.1 million towards that goal. And I encourage everyone present today to log on to jilliansplace.com/saferfutures. I think you would be very proud of the Grimsby residents who have led substantial and early gifts to this campaign because it really has launched us on the trajectory for success. Next slide. Our recommendations, thank you so much for being here and the continued advocacy of our work, but a call to have all municipal employees and elected officials complete Jillian's Place Allied Agency program, and we'd be happy to provide further details about that, but it is a new course that we have launched and has several different courses, but how to identify abuse, what to do with the disclosure of abuse, and how to make appropriate referrals to organizations like Jillian's Place. There is a need for emergency shelter like Jillian's Place and Birchway Niagara in West Niagara, so a commitment to urge funding for this need would be most appreciated. Urge the provincial government to financially invest in our Build a Safer Future campaign. We were very grateful for the federal government's investment of $2.1 million into the project, and advocate for funding for community education and prevention work. We received no funding for our prevention work, while we received limited funding for our crisis intervention work. We know that to prevent and break the cycle of violence and abuse, we need to spend more time educating the public and preventing violence. And thank you so much. And I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Graham. Any questions? Councillor Korstanji.
Thank you, through Chair. Thank you for coming and educating us and letting us know and the community know of all the services that Jillian's Place provides. I was lucky enough to speak with Amanda and Jennifer at the flag raising this morning, and I think we're going to try to connect to do some community education for young women on healthy relationships and sort of tackle things that way. So that'll be exciting to partner up with you guys and bring some more into the community. I had also asked, because in speaking with some of my male colleagues about men's services, and they did let me know that although you don't provide them because it's a women's shelter, but you do, if a male needed to call, you do give referrals to proper resources to men. So that was nice to hear as well. Thank you.
Councillor Sharwa.
Through Mayor Jordan, thank you. I just had a question about how you're connecting say, rural clients, obviously they're quite isolated. So how are you getting your message out to them so that they know that they can come to you? Or what do you see in the future to better make that connection?
Very good question. Our whole mission at Jillian's Place is to break down as many barriers as possible and make our services accessible. And so presentations like tonight help, right? But we need to invest more. And unfortunately, we just don't have the funding to do so in terms of outreach. But I think what you would see since 2018 with the amalgamation of West Niagara Second Stage Housing is that our service numbers have increased, and we attribute that to the outreach work we're doing. But we know there's more to be done, and certainly based just on this presentation tonight that they do experience increased barriers to accessing support. But the services we provide through the West Niagara office and our 24/7 support line are critical to making appropriate referrals.
Great, thank
Councillor
you.
DeVoley.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. My question to our guest speaker tonight. So you've raised $5.1 million. The goal is $8 million. Tell us about the timing of when you're hoping to start construction and what your plans are. Are you waiting until you have all $8 million in the bank? Are you going to start before then? You can hear some examples of my questions. Perhaps you could just expand upon the details of the construction itself.
So out of necessity and, the very crisis nature of our work, we've actually started renovations already. So it's a very large and complex project, but basically right now we're renovating internally, which is phase one, returning our shelter to shelter, so freeing up those spaces that have been taken over by bedrooms. And then phase two will start late 2024. But internal renovations, because of the funding that we have received early on, has enabled that project to start now. And we feel confident that we'll continue to make great headway with our very caring community.
Thank you. And I totally echo your comments. It is an absolutely great effort you are making, and you're to be commended for it.
Seeing no further questions from council, thank you again very much for your presentation, Graham. And certainly, unfortunately, there seems to be an increasing need, and we're so glad that Jillian's Place is trying to fill that need. Thank you. We need a mover and seconder to receive the presentation. Moved by Councillor Vardy, second by Councillor Korstanji. Moved by Councillor Vardy, second by Councillor Korstanji. Resolved that the presentation from Jillian's Place be received. All in favor? That's carried. All right, next we're moving to chair's reports from the standing committees. I'll start with the Planning Committee. We had a planning meeting on October 18th, 2023. Very light agenda. We talked about Sobeys' new sign, and we allowed for increased sign size, but it does fit well with the building and the renovations, and it's not going to cause any issues. And we also talked about planning shared services and approved that for extending that. And it wasn't quite our shortest meeting. It was 3 minutes over the meeting before, so it was 21 minutes, and we finished her up. So, yes, now we move to Community Services Committee, October 23rd, 2023. Councillor Charwa.
Thank you. This was also quite a quick meeting. We approved the road closure for the Grimsby Remembrance Day for November 11th. Member Bennett brought forward an old motion that Councillor Frick had brought with the last council, directing staff to cost an indoor pool. So we kind of discuss that. I had suggested that if we approve it, that I ask for a friendly amendment where we take out the possibility of costing the Peach King Arena as an option for the pool. Fortunately, Member Bennett was fine with that. So in the end, we did all say that it was carried. In other business, Councillor Howe had asked for an update on the 40 Mile Bridge, and Director Sweeney had just given a verbal update about how it was deferred over the $95,000. It was going to be over budget. Council turned it down. That's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor Sharwa. Up next, we have Finance Committee, Councillor DeVoley.
Mayor Jordan and councillors, fellow councillors, the Finance Committee met on October 26th, 2023. After we get through the usual passing of the minutes and the subcommittees, there were basically three main components to the meeting that evening. The first report was a report from our finance staff, wherein what we did was we took the terms of reference, kind of fleshed them out into some details, and mapped out a work schedule for the next 12 months as to when they will be able to help the committee meet the terms of reference and in each of those areas. So that is Finance Report 23-30. Finance Report 23-31 had to do with the processing of our tax write-off applications. They are basically, I will say, a requirement. And so in the past, what has happened is there's always been a delay because the request for the tax write-offs then now comes to finance, and then of course it comes to council, and finance staff can't actually issue the credit or deal with the matter until it makes its way right through the process. There really isn't anything that finance or council can do to not agree with these write-offs. And as has been done in other municipalities, as was shared by the treasurer, that authority for processing those write-offs has been delegated to the actual finance staff. And of course, they make sure that they adhere to the specifics of the Municipal Act and so on. And so finance is basically recommending this evening that we delegate authority to our finance staff to process these. And as we also asked, and the report does include, that we will be given a report at least once a year with a recap of all of the tax write-offs that have been refunded or credited to our residents. And this should really help speed up the processing of these for our residents. Unfortunately, in some cases, because it takes a while to work through the system, they can still be paying property taxes at the higher rate and then still waiting for the refund or the credit to be applied. And so this should speed up that process. The last report was Finance Report 23-32, and basically dealt with a report that, pardon me, some manuals that are required under provincial law to be created dealing with stormwater and wastewater management and monitoring of it. Pardon me. In order to make this happen, of course, we are going to require some consultants' time, and they did put out a request for proposal, and unfortunately, but I guess as is quite standard these days, all of the tenders have come in, and even the lowest one is $25,000 more than the budget. And so the committee basically is recommending that we approve the additional $25,000 and that it come out of the reserves that are listed there. There really isn't an option on this. There is a mandatory requirement that we must do it, and there is a deadline in 2024 that it must be done by. So it is the recommendation of finance that staff be approved to go with this, and that the extra funding come from the reserves that are noted in the minutes there. And that concludes our report.
Thank you, Councillor DeVoley. Up next, we have Public Works, Councillor DeFlavio.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you. The meeting was October 30th for Public Works. There was a very thorough Public Works Department update, which I encourage members of the public to have a look at if you're concerned or have questions about, parkland and shoreline improvement, transportation projects that are currently underway or will be coming. The CMMS is mentioned in there as far as asset management. The meeting itself, we had a discussion about the parking study. The parking study, which has been underway for more than a year now, phase one, and that's looking at existing conditions, is now complete, and the report will be posted on the project page soon. Phase two, which is the action plan and future state, is in progress now. There's a public information session that's coming in late November to discuss phase one and to provide opportunities to receive inputs for phase two. People are encouraged, the public and council are encouraged to check the Let's Talk for Grimsby page for further information. And the Public Works staff will be coming to council with a presentation in December to update council on the parking study. The Downtown Reimagined visioning component, there's a public information session planned for late November. That information will be published soon, I hope, to communicate the design guidelines and get public input on the Downtown Reimagined project. This is something that's been of interest and we've had lots of questions on over the last year. Again, people are encouraged to check the Let's Talk Grimsby page for more information, and staff will be coming with a presentation in December for that one as well. So those meetings in December are filling up quite nicely already. We had a request by the Legion that a portion of Clark Street be renamed to Veterans Way. That's being discussed, and just like any other street name change, there are legal implications for wayfinding and things like that. So staff is looking into it, and even though we can't commit to it yet, it looks like it's certainly doable, and staff is working on that. So that's it for Public Works, Your Worship. If there are any questions, happy to answer them.
Thank you, Councillor DeFlavio. Now we're needing to approve these previous minutes. We need a mover and seconder for that. Moved by Councillor Sharwa. What? You have a question?
May I lift an item from one of the minutes?
Yes. All right, yeah, what item would you like to lift?
From community service.
Councillor Sharwa.
Through Mayor Jordan, thank you. I'd like to lift an item from Finance pertaining to the GDAC minutes. And I'd also like to lift for Council, 13.1, the bylaw 2304, discharge of firearms and bows bylaw for reconsideration.
All right, so the first resolution lifted was moved by Councillor DeVoli. We just need a seconder for that. It's CS 23-034. Councillor Charwa. Moved by Councillor DeVoli, second by Councillor Charwa. Resolved that CS 23-034 from the Community Services meeting October 23rd, 23 minutes be lifted for separate consideration. All in favor? That's carried. All right, so yeah, let's procedurally just discuss that now then. Councillor DeVoli.
Mayor Jordan, this particular item, and I will just read it from the minutes to make everyone familiar with it. There was a resolution put forward, as the chair of that committee mentioned, that staff be directed to provide a report on costing of an indoor pool aquatic facility for the town of Grimsby, together with possible sites. And I would really like us to think twice about this particular item at this time. I realize that there are a lot of residents in our community who would like an indoor pool, and but at this time, it is not our most immediate priority as a council. We have many other priorities that we are trying to get underway, most notably the Peach King Center, and our staff are very deep into launching this particular project at this time. To even be able to cost out an indoor pool facility means trying to even decide on the site, let alone all the other pieces that go with it before you can even come up with what the potential costs may be. And this takes considerable time. This is not something that, you know, the director sits down and in 2 hours can put a dollar amount beside. In fact, it is a very strong likelihood that, you know, they would even need the assistance of some outside consultants in order to be able to do this. And as we've seen with many of our projects, you know, costing them out now, we're finding that even when we struck amounts in the budget, you know, 9-10 months down the road, we're finding that these costs are coming in considerably different even than what the original cost was going to be. So to spend time and actually come up with what the costs are today or tomorrow for an indoor pool that conceivably will not happen for quite some years, perhaps not even within our term of council, seems like spending an enormous amount of time when staff really have quite a few other priorities on the table at the moment. And when I say, you know, a project that will, if it comes to fruition, will be some years down the road, we have in front of us, even as a council, you know, a $9 million debenture coming up to support the hospital. We, without even knowing what the tender price is yet on the Peach King Center, we're looking at an amount in excess of $10 million being tendered there. So we know within our term of council, without any other projects on the table, we're talking about $20 million more of debt that we'll be incurring during this time. And so although I'm sure everyone around this table would like to have an indoor pool happen, I just don't see that realistically it's going to happen within the next few years. And so it doesn't seem a wise use of our staff time to cost it out at this point in time when it could be a number of years down the road before we are at that strategic point of being able to take those next steps. So I would like to see this item be deferred, and quite honestly, I can't even put a time period on it if you require it. I'm going to say, you know, a deferral probably of 2 years at this point before we can re-examine those priorities again.
All right, so there's a deferral motion on the floor moved by Councillor.
Can I ask a procedural question, Your Worship?
Sure.
Because I'm trying to, I know that a notice of deferral is not debatable, but then why is the person who's asking to defer able to speak to the deferral? I just don't understand how because it kind of it doesn't seem like a just way of doing
Yeah,
things.
so
I'm not for or against, I just want a clarification of the procedure.
So I think what we're getting at here, procedurally, you're correct, that someone else has to move a deferral motion. So
Okay.
Counselor Bradsey was the seconder, so you can move the deferral motion. Counselor Frake can second it. Is that?
So I still don't understand. So, pardon me?
Just for clarification for you, Councillor DeFlavio, we don't really know that that was a deferral till the very last moment, so we were waiting to hear what the motion was going to be. She requested a deferral with the background. Questions of clarity can be asked on a deferral motion. You just can't debate it because it will come back, it could come back on the floor as another motion, which would then lead into the discussion of the actual pool and all the, so questions for clarification only.
All right, so we have deferral motion.
Deferral motion. I think
Councillor Sharwa.
Thank you. I'm not looking to debate. I just feel it's a little unfair to the, like, here you were just, I appreciate what you're saying. My point is that now we have to vote and our constituents don't know why we're going to vote a certain way. I just want to be able to explain something to them. It's not even a matter of debating.
Unfortunately, it's just not debatable, so a deferral motion is not debatable. So we have moved by Counselor Bradsey, second by Counselor Frake, resolved that, what's that resolution number? That the municipal indoor pool
23-034.
CS 23-034 be deferred. All in favor? Looks like, well, why don't we do a recorded vote on that? It looks like.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. On the deferral motion for the swimming pool, Councillor Bradsey, to defer.
To defer.
Yes? Okay. Councillor Sharwa.
No, and can I ask why we're going alphabetically now rather than by ward? Like, what's changed with this
We've always
system?
gone alphabetically.
We haven't actually. Last time we did. I'm just wondering why we continuously start off with me.
I'm sorry, I can't answer that. It was just in front of me. So I can mix it up if you like. Okay. Have you a problem with that, Mr. Chair? Councillor Korstanji.
No.
Councillor Vardy.
Yes to defer.
Councillor Howe.
Yes.
Councillor DeVoli.
Yes.
Councillor DeFlavio.
No?
Councillor Frake.
Yes.
And Mayor Jordan.
Yes.
And that's carried.
We just need a seconder for Councillor Sharwa's resolution to lift FC 23-024, the GDAC committee meeting or minutes from finance. Seconder, Councillor DeFlavio. Moved by Councillor Sharwa, second by Councillor DeFlavio, resolved that FC 23-024 from the Finance Committee minutes, the GDAC portion of October 26, 2023, be lifted for separate consideration. All in favor to lift? All right, we need a recorded vote again on that then.
Through you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Mayor. Councillor DeFlavio. To lift.
Yes.
Yes. Councillor Howe.
Yes.
Counselor Frake,
Yes.
Counselor Bratzy,
Yes.
Counselor Sharwa,
Yes.
Counselor Vardy,
Yes.
Counselor Korstanji,
Yes.
Counselor DeVoli,
Yes.
and Mayor Jordan.
Yes.
And that's carried.
All right, so FC 23-024 has been lifted. Who wants to start the discussion off? Counselor Sharwa.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. So first is, I just wanted clarity on the, in the minutes, there was a section in the terms of reference that was not advanced in the minutes. There's some, so I couldn't find anything in the agenda that said anything. So if you can just clarify that part first, what the change was or what was left out. Do I need to read it? It says, for approval of the agenda was amended to remove item 6, the terms of reference discussion. So if I could get clarity on that first.
Yeah, Jessica, go ahead if you have some clarification. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. So at the GDAC meeting, they elected to remove that item from the agenda before the approval, so that's why it was approved as amended. It's a standing item on their agenda. That's why they had to, and the agenda was already published, so that's why they had to remove it and approve it as amended to go forward, because they did not consider that item at that meeting.
Okay, that satisfies that question. The second one is, so I understand that the GDAC minutes were from Thursday, October the 19th. On the 12th, there was a community roundtable that was held at the Casablanca Hotel. It was invite only. I thought it was actually a planning meeting because it was mostly developers and a few council members. So I'd just like to know which council members attended, which developers were there, if any of them were the Greenbelt developers, because we voted on something 4 days later to do with the Greenbelt properties. Were there any Ontario Progressive Conservative officials there as well, or staff? And why was this not a public issue? Why was it not on the calendar? Why was it not advertised? How is that a community roundtable? Ready, please.
Counselor Frick?
First of all, it was a community development meeting, and we had invited all of the developers, investors, property managers, anyone that has anything to do with building parts of this town or have built parts of this town. And the purpose of the meeting was to hear from them as to how they think we are doing as a town in terms of process. There was 70 people at the event from a cross-section of the community. All of the senior staff were there. One other counselor was there, that was Councillor Howe. There was representatives from the MPCA, from the region. There was no elected officials from the PC party. Was not there. So it was a very successful event. And I don't know what else I can tell you. And what will happen is that the information that came back from that event will be delivered to council sometime in the near future. So town right now and staff are sifting through all of the discussions that were had that day at each table, and we'll bring them forward as a report.
And I just wanted to add that I was there as well, and I gave greetings on behalf of council and the community, and it was a really well-run event, and it was something that I talked to several people there, both staff, developers, that really were happy that GDAC was putting forward an event such as this, that was something where we could get communication within the community in a luncheon setting that really added a lot to the way we can just make things move smoother by having those lines of communications open. And certainly post-pandemic, this is something that is sorely needed, and I'm really glad that the GDAC committee has put something like that forward.
I appreciate that. However, you didn't answer my questions. Were the Greenbelt developers there? Because I have seen the invite list, and the Ontario Progressive Conservative officials or staff of the Ontario Progressive Conservative staff, because I did see that on the invite list as well. So if I could get clarification on that, I'd greatly appreciate it. And I'd also wonder if the community would only involve developers, because it wasn't an open invitation for residents. So I'm a little disappointed, and the fact that it's not even in the minutes for something that came 7 days later, this should have been recorded.
Just a point of clarification, it wasn't a meeting, it was an event.
I would caution you to not turn this into some kind of a conspiracy theory that we had Greenbelt people there that might have been caught up in the Greenbelt fiasco. Yeah, well, let's be very careful. That's all I can say. There were developers there from every single developer that has built or intends to build something in this town. So there was nobody left out. I'm not going to. Sorry? It wasn't a council meeting. It was an event held by GDAC. Come on, guys. It was a community meeting that was held by GDAC. There's nothing. You're turning this into some kind of a conspiracy thing. I don't believe it. Come on.
Was anybody there representing the Greenbelt developments was my question, because I saw the invite list. Were they there?
I would have to go through the list. Let me think. There was a representative there from I don't want to mention names. I'm sorry. But there might have been representatives there from some of the Greenbelt developers, yeah, possibly. What's your point? Should we leave them out? I mean, they're developers in town. They build other things.
My point is just that the accountability factor was sucked, basically, because I've had this conversation with other council members from other municipalities outside of Niagara, and the optics are absolutely atrocious. So if this was something that, is like out in the open, then put it out in the open. It should have been on the calendar. It should have been in the minutes. You should have had it open to other council members. It should have been recorded. I should have been able to see what was going on. My concern is that this was not open. So in the future, if you could make this a little bit more transparent, I would greatly appreciate it.
Councillor Howe.
Thank you, through you, Chair. If this would have been open so that everybody could have their little says, then I would suggest that probably 3/4 of the people that were in attendance would not have been there because they didn't want to put up with political nonsense. They were there to talk business and to share business, and for us to try to understand what their requirements are from us, and also to share what our requirements are to them from a very wide range way. But it's not to, keep anybody out of a loop. It's just to recognize the importance of a certain group of people in town.
And just to further clarify, on Friday, November 10th, there is a Green Committee meeting, and it is a closed meeting, and it's a round table. It's not a meeting, it's a round table, and it's not open to the public. It's a green round table. There are guests there. And it is by invitation, and it's not a meeting under the Municipal Act, so.
Will there be developers there from the Greenbelt?
I don't know, but an economic development meeting, and I really take offense to this concept. Councillor Frake, order, please. Yeah, there was nothing wrong with this event, and I really commend the event being put together, and I'll stand by that. Councillor DeFlavio.
Thanks, Your Worship. Through you. So I guess I don't know anything about this meeting because I wasn't invited, but it sounds like it was the construction community or the development community that was there with a couple members of council. I guess my question is there a lack of development in Grimsby? Are we trying to encourage more development? Because are we trying to encourage more condominiums and homes being built? Because that doesn't seem like economic development to me. That seems like one of the things that we are in abundance of is people who want to build in Grimsby. We don't have land to build on. Economic development to me would be, if there was a meeting that was held, I guess, that involved hundreds of businesses or even dozens of businesses from outside of Grimsby or even inside of Grimsby, I don't think there would be any criticism. I think that the fact that there was developers there in a closed meeting with a couple of members of council is what seems to be the concern. And again, there's no implication that something wrong happened. It's whenever we do something, though, the appearance is just as important as the reality. And if there was a closed meeting that occurred with developers and members of council.
Again, I'd like to clarify, it wasn't a meeting.
Okay,
It was an event.
so I've been to lots of town events before, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to imply anything. I think it was completely on the up and up. I don't want to imply anything. It's the appearance that is of concern. And I've been to, breakfast events held by GDAC. I've been to lots of different events, and never once was it a closed door event. There were tickets that you could buy. There were members of council were invited to it. So this is kind of an unusual thing in my experience. Again, not implying something wrong happened. It's the way that it appears that is the concern, I think. And that's all I want to say about it. Just the question I had was who paid for the breakfast or the luncheon or whatever it was? And what was the cost?
GDAC paid for it, and I don't remember the cost.
Harold, I wonder if you could take the podium and just expound a little bit on the event and what you hope to achieve by it.
Through council, my understanding is that this really came about over some time because of rumblings. Some of it was perception. Some of it might have been truth about a process that was somewhat slow. That there was there needed to be a kind of a re-establishment of communications between ourselves and the broader development and business community. So it wasn't just developers that were there. There was also a significant number of different professions and businesses involved in town, in city building. As well as, I believe, retailers as well. So there was a cross-section of people there that represented mostly the business community, and it was intended to do a couple of things. One was to first relay back to them that since, and I believe it had been, maybe this was an unprecedented event. There had never really been an event like this before, which was an opportunity to present and update the business community on what the town is doing with respect to improvements in its approval process and updating in its Any other updates with respect to the changes related to legislation, provincial legislation? There was a whole host of improvements that were made or that are underway that were being that were conveyed to the group. And then it was also an opportunity for us to introduce ourselves, and then to hear, really mostly listen to the business community's ideas, opinions, and concerns about a whole broad spectrum of things. It was also really quite helpful, given we are in the early stages of the official plan, because it allowed us to promote the official plan process and the importance of their involvement in the official plan process. And so we spoke to that, and we also talked about the process and how to participate. And it was about creating goodwill, mostly, I think, and kind of a trust in the process, and that there wasn't any intentional efforts to quash business or extend processes unnecessarily. We were all struggling with legislative changes, with capacity issues, staff issues, but all of that was being addressed. And so I think everybody left with really good feelings about the process, and that there should be more of these events in the future.
Thank you, Harold. Councillor Sharwa.
Through Mayor Jordan, thank you. So I appreciate that you responded. I don't know why you got kind of sucked into it, because you are the Director of Planning, and this was supposed to be an economic development committee. So perhaps it would have been better if we called it a planning workshop of some sort, or development, because I think 80% of the people that were not staff or council were actually developers. And I did speak with somebody who was part of outside the development. They were from the other sector, and they said they didn't get anything out of it. It was mostly developer driven. So I don't know if you can take that back, but I appreciate you being open with your answers. Thank you.
Councillor Bradzi.
Thank you, Chair, through you. I think we're making a mountain of a molehill here. I think this initiative is a positive one. The one thing I would point to is if you pull up the Town of Lincoln's Facebook or any social media page, it says, join us for a developer-led community information meeting. Date is November 21st at 6 p.m. It's run by a consulting group. Perhaps maybe something like that in the future, I would agree would make some sense, but I applaud the efforts of the GDAC committee.
Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, now we'll move to the next lifted item. It's moved by Councillor Sharwa. We need a seconder. It's bylaw C-23-265. Councillor Bradzi, you're seconding it? And it needs 2/3 to be lifted because it's a bylaw. Yeah, that's the firearms. Moved by Councillor Sharwa, second by Councillor Bradzi. Resolved that Resolution C-23-265 from Council minutes of November 6, 2023 be lifted for separate consideration. Recorded vote.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Vardy.
No.
Councillor Howe.
No.
Councillor Korstanji.
Yes.
Councillor Frake.
No?
Councillor DeVoli.
Yes.
Councillor DeFlavio.
Yes.
Councillor Sharwa.
Yes.
Councillor Bradzi.
Yes.
And Mayor Jordan.
No.
And 2/3 was not achieved here, so it fails.
All right, now we move to the adoption of the previous minutes. Need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Korstanji, seconder. Councillor Frake. Just let me get. Moved by Councillor Korstanji, second by Councillor Frake. Resolved that the following minutes be approved. Council, October 16th, 2023. Planning and Development Committee, October 18th, 2023. Community Service Committee, October 23rd, 2023, as amended. Finance Committee, October 6th, 2023. Public Works Committee, October 30th, 2023. All in favor? That's carried. All right, next we move to the council endorsement package from the Grimsby Heritage Advisory Committee. Need a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Korstanji and Councillor Frake. Moved by Councillor Korstanji, second by Councillor Frake. Resolved that the council endorsement package from the October 10th, 2023 Grimsby Heritage Advisory Committee meeting be approved. All in favor? That's carried. All right, we need a mover and seconder for receipt of Grimsby Public Library Board, September 13th, 2023, Committee of Adjustment, September 19th, 2023, and Grimsby Heritage Advisory Committee, October 10th, 2023. Mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Howe, second by Councillor Davoli. Moved by Councillor Howe, second by Councillor Davoli. Resolved that the following board minutes be received. Grimsby Public Library Board, September 13th, 2023. Committee of Adjustment, September 19th, 2023. Grimsby Heritage Advisory Committee, October 10th, 2023. All in favor? That's carried. All right, before we get into announcements, I would like to thank Councillor Frake and Councillor Davoli for presiding over council meetings as deputy mayor for the last year. And now Councillor Vardy is our deputy mayor for the upcoming 6-month cycle.
I'm in the seat of power finally.
Any other announcements? Councillor Korstanji.
Thank you, through Chair. I'd just like to commend the Grimsby Rotary and the community services staff on a very successful Grimsby Glows event. I was lucky enough to be a pumpkin judge, and it was a lot of work, and it was really difficult. There were a lot of great pumpkins. It was commendable to see the team effort with staff and Rotary on the cleanup crew as well. And I'd like to give a shout out to Grimsby Firefighter Association for a fantastic turkey roll. I stayed a lot longer than I had planned, but I won a lot of great prizes. So thank you to the businesses who donated a lot of stuff and to the firefighters who worked really hard to raise a lot of money for the community.
Thank you, Councillor Korstanji. Yeah, it was. I was happy to be the very first person to drop off a pumpkin for Grimsby Glows at around 8 in the morning on November 1st. There was no one there yet, so. Councillor DeFlavio.
Thank you, Mayor. So a couple of things. First of all, Councillor Korstanji, I heard that you weren't very popular because you won all the awards, the prizes there at the turkey roll. The Grimsby Authors Series continued on October 27th at the Public Library. Harriet Lai, and Hannah Marie McKinnon were there to talk about their books. It was another sold-out event, and the next one is also sold out. The spring tickets, the next one is Craig Shreve and Terry Fallis, who I think it'll be Terry Fallis' 7th time coming to the Grimsby Author Series, and that's November 17th, 2023. The spring season will be on sale soon. The other thing I wanted to mention was Councillor Baraji and I and Stephanie and one ringer that we brought in were able to participate in the Curl for Kids' Sake. And when I say participate, I'm using those words very, very loosely for my participation in the event because I apologize to my team for my lack of skill when it comes to curling, but it was a great event sponsored by Edward Jones, and lots of volunteers from the community were there. They raised, I think it was over $30,000 in the end for Big Brothers and Big Sisters. It's always a fun event. I've done the bowl for kids' sake many times, never done the crow for kids' sake. I think my teammates probably want me to never participate in it again, but I'm going to try and get better for next time. And I do apologize wholeheartedly for how horrible and how many stones I wasted on our team's behalf. But thanks for everybody that participated.
Councillor Sharwa.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. I just wanted to say thank you to the Grimsby and Lincoln Fire Department for allowing council to come for firefighter for the day. Councillor DeVoli and Councillor Bradzi and I and our CAO, I think that's it right before. We're there for the town of Grimsby, and we had a great time with many of the councillors from Lincoln. And yeah, they were gracious hosts, and we got to see what it's like to be them. So thank you for that. That was great.
Councillor Vardy.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. As most of you know, I've just returned from several weeks in Japan, and I just wanted to share with you that while I visited several places outside of Tokyo, in the north, Kesunuma, in the south, Osaka, Kanazawa, and up in the mountains in Gora. And I just wanted to share with you that the speed limit there in all of those places is 40 kilometers an hour. So there we go. The Japanese are really advanced.
All right, I just have a couple more to add. I was able to go to the Legion today to participate in the Veterans Lunch. In the past years, this event has been held in December, and it's been snowed out more than once. So we moved it, or the Legion moved it to Remembrance Week, and it was a really very nice touch. We had Lieutenant Prevost who served. He was 99 years old, so it was quite nice to enjoy a lunch with him. And I just wanted to remind everyone that Saturday, November 11th, there will be a service at the Cenotaph at the museum starting just after 10. Councillor Bradzi.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, I just wanted to build upon that and encourage everybody to go check out the fantastic poppy display at the Grimsby Museum and at Trinity Church. I believe at Jill Howe's Central. And just wanted to commend the efforts there.
Yes, thanks for adding that, Councillor Bradzi. Councillor DeFlavio.
I forgot to mention, Councillor Bradzi and I will be hosting a trivia night this Friday at the Legion. It is Canadian War-related trivia in honor of Remembrance Day. Councillor Bradzi, do you want to give more details, like time and things like that? Didn't mean to put you on the spot. I just forgot to mention it.
Yeah, the details of the event can be found at the Grimsby Legion's Facebook page. It'll start at 7, entries by donation to the Poppy Fund, and it'll be kind of central to around Canadian military history.
Councillor Howe.
Through you, Chair, if I can, just Jacob, Jill Howe is a wonderful person. She's not my wife. Okay, thank you.
All right, seeing no further announcements, we'll move to consent report. Okay, how is this worded? Katie, you're going to explain the council meeting consent report.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So just a quick overview so council's aware. The purpose of the report is just to provide council with their 2024 calendar for council standing committee and advisory committee meetings. The procedural bylaw indicates that the clerk shall provide that public notice of all council and committee meetings, which includes the posting of an annual schedule as well. The report and calendar just before you here in earlier November to assist our planning department with scheduling for the new year. They've received some planning applications that require 2024 consideration, so this will help. It's also, we feel, beneficial for council and members of the public that sit on our standing committees to know the meeting schedule and plan accordingly for 2024. This calendar is subject to amendments wherever necessary and may also be brought to the standing committees for review. So thank you.
All right, so we just need to, Councillor Sharwa.
Through Mayor Jordan, thank you. I was about to lift this as well. I just had a few things that I just wanted to point out on page 2. As you know, we canceled the meeting about a month or so ago. So there's just some gray areas I'm hoping we can tidy up a little bit. So the one part, it says provisional meetings or workshops may be scheduled as necessary and as determined by the town clerk in consultation with the mayor. As you know, several of us work outside of council, and when we have these last minute changes, obviously we can't all accommodate. So it would be nice if the mayor could or the clerk could put out just a quick email just asking if this works for everybody, because like even today, it was the last minute 5:30 that we didn't actually need to do. And it was very difficult for me to get here, so I'd appreciate that. The second thing, the next bullet, scheduling of committee and council meetings may be amended from time to time by the clerk in consultation with the chair and with appropriate notice. So again, if you could define when appropriate notice is, because the cancellation of the one meeting was at 3:30 when the agenda was to be posted at 5 p.m. Very late, no warning that it was even going to happen. And also the reason to cancel, there wasn't. It says here to recognize insufficient agenda items or identified scheduling conflicts, or if it appears that inclement weather or an emergency situation will prevent the members from attending. These were not issues. So again, if we could have maybe some kind of discussion about canceling before it actually happens, I'd appreciate that, because maybe there's some input that you can get from council that we could accommodate in some other way.
Just a point of clarification, I just want to say that this is why we do have a lot of meetings, and this is why every municipality only needs a quorum. Not every councillor has to be at every meeting, and that's why the whole municipal act is based upon a quorum.
Sorry, I just wanted to add to that. So I do my best to be at every meeting. I think I've missed one workshop since we started the term, despite having a very rigorous committee schedule. But when I ran for office, that was important to me. So I would like to be able to attend all the meetings. So just making quorum isn't enough for me. So I'd appreciate the accommodation.
Well, I guess making quorum is good enough for the Ontario Municipal Act, and again, I guess that makes it good enough for me. But we'll try, Councillor Sharwa. We just need a mover and seconder for 12.1 TC 23-15. Moved by Councillor Devoldy, second by Councillor Frake. Moved by Councillor Devoldy, second by Councillor Frake. Resolved that report TC 23-15, 2024 Council and Committee meeting schedule dated November 6, 2023 be received, and that Council approve the 2024 calendar attached herein. All in favor? That's carried. All right, next we're moving to report TC 23-14. Discussion report from the Clerk's Department on closed session meeting security options. Bonnie, can you start us, please?
Certainly. Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. This is the report that was requested through a motion passed by this council, and I believe it was moved forward by Councillor Howe, where he was asking if we could do better in terms of security around the matters that come out of the closed session meetings. So this is the options that we're bringing forward this evening. The report contains three options. One, to move to a different location within Town Hall, turning off all electronic devices when we go into closed session, and the final one is to hold closed session meetings using paper copies only, which would be returned to the clerk at the end of a meeting. So this is, and then of course, number 4 isn't here, but of course it's status quo. So this is what we're bringing back for your consideration, and if you wanted to move forward any of the options, or if you just receive it for information, we would continue as we always have. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Bonnie. Discussion? Councillor Howe.
If I can, through you, Chair, and yes, I brought it up because I do have a concern, and probably as much as my inability to turn my phone off and, know that it's off. And there's just too many ways that communication can be shared with these things and constantly. And, I try to remember to turn it off, but there's times I walked into a meeting the other day and it went right off. Say hello. So that we've just got to find a way of tying it up. If you notice the sound, the way it comes through those windows up there, we're not really secure. If you ever want to go outside when there's a conversation going on in here, and for the most part, it's going to carry through. There's not a whole lot of security or a closed session into it. So my feeling is that there's a much better way to do it to protect all of us. Because all it takes is just one slip, one mistake, there are many places where these things and the laptops, are put into a basket and not to go in. And it's something that we have to be careful of, because we have director's insurance to try to protect us from messing up, but it can mess up. And let's make it so that we do everything we can, best practices, to avoid that. And so that's my thoughts on it.
Sir Vardy.
To use a war adage, loose lips sink ships. So I really think the biggest vulnerability in security is people speaking out of turn. And I think that's where we each have to take our own responsibility and accountability.
Councillor Korstanji.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I have no problem turning my phone off, and I have no problem keeping quiet. I'm not a big fan of the paper coppers only, just because it's really bad for the environment.
Councillor Bradsey.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you. I think that option 1, and I agree with pretty much everything Councillor Howe said, would be the most sufficient thing just to utilize going over into, was it the Lakeside room over here? But I'd like to move that we just receive this for information, and then we just make a conscious effort to go into the room with no personal technology.
So just for clarification, do you want option 1, or do you want to just receive it right now?
I guess just to receive, but I think we can kind of do option 1 voluntarily without making it formal, no?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just for clarity for staff, are you saying you would like us to try that? Like maybe just go?
We have a little bit past it, yeah.
Okay, because it would take a little bit of work, because we would need IT to make sure that we can, if we had to zoom in people or whatever, that's all doable. And apparently it is, but I just want to make sure of those things. So if you put an option on, we'll move forward with it.
All right, so we have a resolution for option one, moved by Councillor Bradsey, second by Councillor.
The mayor was just going to put option one on the floor for discussion. Did you want to discuss, or did you have a different option? So he put one option on, and we're now going to ask for.
Yeah, the resolution that's on the floor takes precedent now, so. And so we have a resolution by Councillor Bradsey, second by Councillor DeVoley, to consider option one. Councillor Sharwa.
Through Mayor Jordan, thank you. I do not feel comfortable with option one, mainly because there's no record. So we've scurried off into another closed session in that in the escarpment room and had no recording.
Just a point of clarification, the clerk just finished saying that the staff is going to need time to set up either the escarpment room or lakeside room with the ability to record.
Okay, so I would just like to have some kind of assurance that would happen, because then the minutes are, we can cross-check the minutes as well when we have a recording.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's absolutely what I just was saying. I need to work with IT because that brings in other things, and I would also be bringing back your procedural bylaw to make sure that's all covered in there as well, what's taped and all those kinds of things.
Councillor DeFlavio.
Thanks, Your Worship. Through you, I think none of the above is the right option. I don't think that closed session items, going back to what Councillor have already said, it's talking about closed sessions that is a concern, not people recording them or whatever it is. It's 2023. I use a tablet for everything. I use my laptop for everything. I take all my notes on there. I do all of that stuff. So, you know, I don't think that restricting electronics is the way to go, because, you know, everybody knows the procedures. If people follow the procedures of closed sessions, you know, you're not allowed to record. You're not allowed to. There are very clear procedures. If people need a refresher, that's fine. But I don't think that we need a change. I think that it's a non-issue that we're spending time on when we have other things that we could be dealing with. And if people have genuine concerns about somebody leaking something from a closed session, I would suggest they bring it up to the clerk or you know, deal with it in the procedures that we have in a notification to that person or whatever. But I don't think that we need to change our closed session procedures. I don't like the idea of going in a room because it seems secretive, to be honest with you. I like being here. I feel like it allows for better communication. From an appearance perspective, I think it's better, even though people can't watch us. We are out in the open. We're not in a little room having these you know, perceived. And I'm again, there's no secret discussions that are happening, but we want to make it sure that everything appears proper too. And I think that the way that we do that is we continue to have it here, we continue to follow the procedures, and we make sure that people are following procedures. Remind people of what they're supposed to do and what they're not allowed to do. And it's as simple as that.
Councillor DeVoley.
Mayor Jordan, the reason that I support option one has to do with the fact of two matters related to this room specifically. One, we have glass walls, and I too have stood outside of this when people have been talking about things in here, and you can hear through the glass walls, unfortunately. I don't think we really want to go to the expense of making this room soundproof. So, you know, the option then becomes of moving to one of the committee rooms next door. That's my first concern with this room. The second concern with this room is that even in closed session, we often have presentations given to us that are broadcast on both these screens. And quite honestly, if you were in the lobby and you stood right behind any of our guests here this evening, between where the shades are, and you looked in through the glass, glass, you could actually see the presentations that are above us here over the heads of the mayor and some of us here at the front. And so it's not a really good room to hold closed sessions in. And that is the reason for my support of moving to a different location in Town Hall where perhaps we can try and do that. It is going to be a trifle difficult in those rooms too, because they do have glass walls down the one side. And so this is not something that's easily done, but I think it's probably more easily done in the committee rooms than it is to try and redo the council chambers for the sound and the sight of the closed session material.
Councillor Vardy.
You know, I think another option that might be easier is, because we usually have our closed sessions towards the end of the meeting when we're done with all the public business, maybe we ask if there's.
Councillor Vardy, option 1's on the floor right now, so that's what we're debating, so.
Okay, I'm getting there.
Okay.
I'm getting there, okay. So I guess I don't agree with option 1, because if there are people still here, rather than wire up another room and everybody move, we just ask if anybody here who wishes to stay can go into the other room, shut the door, drop the curtains, and Bob's your uncle. Because we do have them at night, like at the end of the meeting, there isn't usually anybody left here when we have our closed sessions. So I just think it might be more practical just to do it that way.
Councillor Sharwa.
Through Mayor Jordan, I think that was a very practical alternative, so I would support that if we added that and just have the closed sessions at the end, like you said, and then just ask people to wait out. Well, they'd be done, so they'd be out of here anyways.
Councillor Howe.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Councillor Vardy, what I see with that is we do have to come back into open session and report. And if we've pushed people out, so in order to keep the security, out of the building, well, then it would be a technicality that we have to invite them back in? And is there an expectation? Yeah, no, they only go out there. Yeah, just the numbers.
Yeah,
It just allows us to do our job a little bit better, and we can live without our electronics as we discuss things. If we can't remember and deal with what we hear in a very brief period of time, then, it's a different world.
All right, seeing no further discussion, moved by Councillor Bradsey, second by Councillor DeVoley, resolved that report TC 23-14 closed session meeting security options dated November 6, 2023 be received, and that council implement option 1 from the report. All in favor? All right. I'm in favor too, so it's still lost. All right, so that's defeated. All right, so we have the report on the table for information. We have a mover as Councillor Howe. Do we have a seconder to receive it for information? Councillor Frake. Discussion? Moved by Councillor Howe, second by Councillor Frake, resolved that report TC 23-14, closed session meeting security options dated November 6, 2023 be received, and that council consider and implement one or more of the following, of the recommended security options. All in favor? That's carried. All right, up next we have report DCS 23-52, report from Community Services regarding a budget amendment for the Parks Master Plan project. Sarah, welcome. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Good evening, Mayor Jordan and members of council. So the Parks Master Plan project before you this evening builds on the broader Parks, Recreation, and Culture Master Plan that was completed in 2018. The 2018 plan took a high-level view of parks and other community service areas as part of that plan, identifying a number of key areas to focus on. And this parks plan that is before you this evening will build on that work with a new lens and also delve into a more thorough and focused analysis, specifically on parks, open space, and public realm. Completing this work now is needed to maximize the opportunities of the community benefit charge strategy, which is work that is currently underway with the finance team. And it will also be a very strong companion piece to the official plan, which is also work that is underway, working closely with the planning staff. The plan, of course, will also, in addition to these two pieces, really help us to develop a more focused strategy, focusing in on the parks and open space areas. We know how important parks, open space, and public realm spaces are to the community, and we're seeing changes in funding sources and also strategies for future and current parkland needs. This plan will respond to these challenges, provide us with updated policies and strategies to maximize the potential we can provide in parks and open space. And this work will also actively engage the public and be very important to guiding future decision-making. Staff are requesting a project budget of $110,000, which is higher than the amount originally anticipated. However, staff do want to ensure that there is sufficient budget based upon some trends we have been seeing in costs coming back, anticipating high consultant fees in a high demand market, and also making sure we build in some costs to support the public engagement process as well. This project will be funded through development charges and reserves. We're hoping to get this work underway very soon, and we anticipate the work to take approximately a year once it's awarded. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Sarah. Questions from council? Councillor Howe?
Through you, Chair. Each time we have one of these surveys, and I understand for long-term planning, but we never put any type of a cost component to allow people to think about it. And I understand they can't go 4 years down the road and think what the cost is, but there's got to be some way of working it in to people so that, oh, that thing, gee, I thought it was a good idea. Oh, it's going to cost $3 million? Well, you know, that there's a certain cost to identifying what it is. If they don't know a cost, and we're kind of going through some issues right now where people didn't quite know costs, and it's coming back to be not real popular. So if there was any way whatsoever to build in some type of a cost consideration to make people kind of think about how important it is to them. You know, are they willing to pay for it or not? How much they willing to pay for it? I don't know. I don't know if it's possible. That's my biggest concern with it. I would like to see it, though, a little bit more of climate change sustainability. You know, we gave it a little bit of a blurb, you know, in the proposal. I'd like to see a little bit more strength in that because that's going to be the toughest thing to try to keep the green spaces going is the future climate. So thank you.
Any further questions, comments? All right, we just need a mover and seconder for the resolution. Moved by Councillor DeFlavio, seconder, Councillor Frake. Moved by Councillor DeFlavio, second by Councillor Frake. Resolved that report DCS 23-52 Parks Master Plan Project dated November 6, 2023 be received, and that council approve a new Parks Master Plan operating project with a budget request of $110,000, and that council approve a budget amendment of $110,000 for Parks Plus Master Plan project to be funded from the development charges, growth studies, $78,364, and parkland dedication reserve, $31,636. All in favor? All right, we need a recorded vote on this.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Charwa.
Yes.
Councillor Bradzi.
No.
Councillor DeVoli.
Yes.
Councillor Frake.
Yes.
Councillor DeFlavio.
Yes.
Councillor Korstanji.
Yes.
Councillor Howe.
No.
Councillor Vardy.
Yes.
And Mayor Jordan.
Yes.
And that's carried.
Up next, we move to section 14.1, Councillor DeFlavio, Grimsby on the Lake DIA. We have Councillor DeFlavio as a mover. I need a seconder. Councillor Bradzi. Any discussion? Councillor DeFlavio?
Yeah, just quickly, Your Worship. So we had a previous report from our clerk about the Grimsby on the Lake, the procedure for the DIA, or for the BIA in Grimsby on the Lake. This is just kind of a poll the audience, see if they're still interested. If there's not interest out there in pursuing a BIA, then I think it's gone for a period of time until somebody brings it back. But we did have an original survey, or not survey, sorry, I remember a poll, yeah, or sorry, yeah, like there were businesses that came together and asked for us to look into this. That's what brought it forward in the first place. It's not going to be town-led, it's just going to be town-organized. So if there are enough businesses to pursue this, then we will continue along the road, and if not, that's the end of that. That's all, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor DeFlavio. Any further, just Councillor DeVoli.
Mayor Jordan, I have worked with businesses in this town and in other towns for, I'll say, 40-plus years, and I've always said that one of the things I learned from watching them is that they are extremely vulnerable in their first 3 years, I will say. When I say vulnerable, as in vulnerable to continue on as a viable business. And what we are seeing out in the Grimsby on the Lake area is some new businesses starting up. We've already seen some turnover amongst those businesses, where some of them, unfortunately, haven't been able to sustain themselves in the beginning period and have left. We're also seeing a lot of development taking place there with commercial space. So more is going to come, which is good. But we're going to go through, and the businesses that come into that commercial area, whether it's at, where the Casablanca Inn is, or in some of the other developments where the Lissani developments are going to be on, where the Fifth Wheel was. In many of those areas, we're going to have some commercial development taking place too. And so we're going to have more new businesses, hopefully, starting up. And in fact, one of the things that we have come to see too in planning is that inevitably residential properties are occupied first, and then commercial comes in. So sometimes there's even a lag from the time of building, residential fills in, and then commercial comes. So there's definitely the prospect of many new businesses in that particular area, which is good. But at which point in time will they finally be sustainable, and at which point in time might they be interested in putting an effort into participating in a business improvement area still waits to be seen. I think we are very much in the preliminary steps of this, and so I hope someday they will be at that point. But right now, I feel that we are kind of trying to move this along sooner than it may actually take traction in all of this. And so much as I appreciate the effort of my fellow councillors to take a survey and see what is going to happen with this, there's just so few businesses there, and they are in their early learning years, that I would suggest we wait another year, 2, 3, even until there are more there before they take on that job. It is a lot of work to actually participate on a BIA, as some of my fellow councillors know, and as I am experiencing sitting on it too. Especially for the businesses. I'm not talking about from the councillor perspective even, but it's a lot of work for the businesses who decide to sit on that board as well, in addition to running their businesses. And we've already had some businesses, some representatives on the DIA board already this year step back, feeling that it was too much work for them. And so I really caution us against pushing this idea too quickly for them, and would like to see us give some time until there are more businesses there and they sort of have a force to really make this happen for themselves.
Councillor Howe.
Much very similar, Mr. Chair, to Councillor DeVolik. BIA needs to be organic. It needs to come from within. And I'm concerned that if we go around and survey them, if there's even the thought that, the town is looking at trying to set this up or give some kind of a window, I'm not sure that that's really what they want to see. Oh, and does it leave a perception, be it a very minute one, but a perception that this is a town thing, and knowing that all the monies that the BIAs and the DIAs spend, it's their money. It's not town money. The town does not give them any money. It's their money, and there's a very large commitment to paying that when they pay their rents. It can be very difficult. I think there's a sense of us accepting a part of their risk. And I know where you're coming from, Councillor DeFlavio, but I think you need to let them grow on their own. And if they come out and they ask the questions on BIAs, which I believe they've been given the option, and there is a lot of information and people that they can talk to, but I'm not thinking that it's the best thing for those people down there. They've got other issues to think about before a BIA.
Councillor Bradzi.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. While I definitely can kind of agree that there's definitely not the critical mass quite yet to support this, but one thing I don't want to get lost in all of this is one of the initial requests of the group that did form, requesting we look into this, was some sort of signage just to acknowledge their existence down there. And their initial asks were much smaller than forming a BIA, but then it was something that piqued their interest, and they definitely wanted to explore for future use. But yeah, the immediate asks were much smaller.
Councillor DeFlavio.
Thanks, Your Worship. I agree with what everybody's saying. I want to keep it simple, and that is, are businesses interested in creating a BIA or not? And if not, then that's it. I would caution people about using timelines and things like that. I agree with the critical mass part. That was one of my original criticisms, and one of the things I said in the beginning was I don't feel like there are enough businesses there established. That being said, I would imagine that out of the original businesses that created the Grimsby DIA, there are probably very few that still exist today. If you look at the stats for Canada, about 21% of businesses don't make it past the first year, about 50% don't make it past 5 years, and only a third last 10 years or more. So if you want to set a timeline, what's that timeline? 5 years? Because if it's 5 years, 50% of those businesses are going to be gone, according to the stats. Is it 1 year, because then a fifth of those businesses are going to be gone. So I don't want to get into an argument about businesses coming and going, because businesses come and go all the time. I asked a simple question. Can staff poll the audience? Are you interested in having a BIA? And giving them a clear understanding that it's funded by the businesses in that area. It's not the town of Grimsby that funds the BIA or the DIA. Anything that they do, they'll be paying for themselves. So I just wanted to ask the question, are you interested? And if not, if there's not enough people that are interested, it's done. Like I said, I think people are hyping it up a little more than what it actually is. So.
Councillor Howe.
Through you, Chair. Councillor DeFlavia, why don't you and I go take a walk down there one day? We could cover it off pretty quick, ask the question, save staff time. How's that sound?
This arose from a petition. Through your worship, sorry, this arose from a petition of businesses down there. Otherwise we wouldn't be having this discussion. It was a petition of businesses down there and to be honest, one of those businesses doesn't exist anymore. So that if we are constantly waiting for businesses to develop and be established, this is never going to happen. We have to figure out if they are interested. But yeah, I'm happy to go for a walk. I'll be down there tomorrow afternoon. So we can walk down the street. It's just, there are owners that will have to pay because it's a tax levy for BIAs. It's not just the businesses, because frankly, a business might be interested in being part of a BIA, but the owner of that property might not be, because it's going to cost them more in taxes, because there's a levy on your taxes when you're part of a BIA. So that's why I wanted staff to survey it and give accurate information of what's entailed in this. So, because us having a conversation, Councillor Howe, I'm happy to have that conversation with people, but it doesn't answer people's questions quite the way that staff would be able to.
Councillor Vardy.
Is this possibly something that our new communications person could look into and maybe put something on our website and get some information that way, rather than making like a really big staff effort, because everybody's really busy. We're coming to the end of the year. You know, maybe there's a way of more passively putting it out there and seeing what kind of response there is. But just something on our website explaining what BIAs do and how they work, and and that would give people who are interested some better idea of what's involved.
Councillor DeVoley.
Mayor Jordan, I'd just like to reiterate that one of the other comments that I made, and so even if we take a survey, we're taking a survey of existing businesses, but what I was trying to explain is that there is commercial space that is being built and is about to be built too within the next few years that will bring more businesses into the area. And so it's not even about, yes, businesses are quite vulnerable in the first couple of years and may or may not be interested in this. They have to come to the table and dedicate their time and effort to actually being a part of the DIA, in addition to contributing financially to it. But that's really hard to do when there's only, I'm making up numbers, 10, 15 businesses. But in about 3 to 5 years, there's probably going to be 100 businesses in that area, at which time, there is a critical mass and there are enough businesses there with business owners who may actually be willing to devote their time to it. And so my question is now the time to even do the survey, or should we wait until we have more businesses there and more business owners who are realistically interested in that type of a venture?
Councillor Bradzi.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. I think the majority of the business owners down there, we can say, are interested in this. With there not being enough and not being enough funding, it's definitely something that they should probably stay organically, as Councillor Howe mentioned. I know that there is the desire for a Christmas market down there. Perhaps they can hit the ground running by informally forming their own group. I just also think from the economic development perspective, if there's a role we can play to facilitate retention of our businesses, with seeing as our residential to commercial taxpayer rates 90 to 10, and if a BIA is that, then I think we should pursue it. I'm not saying that it is going to have a huge effect in retention, but if I would very much like to hear back from staff more on this.
All right, seeing no further discussion, moved by Councillor DeFlavio, second by Councillor Bradsey. Whereas Council received information report TC 23-12, Grimsby on the Lake Business Improvement Area Investigation on July 4th, 2023, that provided a response to the validity and the benefits of forming a Grimsby on the Lake BIA. And whereas at that time, Council received the information and no further action was taken, therefore be it resolved that staff be requested to survey the businesses in the BIA geographical area as well, or area as was presented in Appendix A of the same report, to see if the support for this formation still exists, and be it further resolved that staff report back to Council regarding the results and next steps in this process. A friendly amendment? All right.
If I may make a friendly amendment. So it says a survey of businesses to see if the support for this formation still exists and if they would be willing to participate in the organization's executive committee or on the organization's board of directors, because that truly is an indication of willing to put their feet to the ground, right?
Does mover and seconder accept that friendly amendment? All right, mover and seconder is okay with that. I won't reread it. The part that was added was if they will be willing to participate. So all in favor? That's carried. All right, now we're moving to Councillor Charrois' resolution on the creation of a lobbyist registry. You moved it, Councillor Charrois. We need a seconder for that. Councillor DeFlavio. It was a notice of motion last.
Yeah, it was a notice.
Discussion. Councillor Charrois.
Through you, Mayor Jordan, thank you. So I'll just read some of the things from Collingwood, since this is being proposed to be used as a model. So about the registry, the lobbyist registry came into effect in January, forms part of the Town of Collingwood's accountability transparency framework. It's an online tool that documents instances of substantive communication, such as telephone calls, meetings, or emails between those who lobby and members of council or town staff. Are we good? Okay. In a centralized database that is easy to access and search by the public and interested stakeholders. So why should I register? Lobbying is a legitimate activity that benefits not only lobbyists, but public office holders and members of the public as well. The benefits of lobbying conversations are lost, however, when they take place exclusively behind closed doors. As such, the lobbyist registry was adopted to enhance accountability and transparency in local government by providing public access to the elements of the business conducted at the Town of Collingwood. So in this, there's in-house lobbyists, consultant lobbyists, volunteer, unpaid lobbyists. Clearly, there's lobbying that's going to happen. That always happens in politics. This is just a proposal to have staff give us a report as far as having a registry, just to keep things open and transparent. That's it. And if you've talked to somebody, all you need to do is record it and explain it. It shouldn't be a big issue. I don't want to be asking questions on camera all the time. Just document it and explain it. And if it's reasonable, then people will understand, including myself. So that's it. Collingwood is municipality of 21,000. Their lobbyist registry is very simple. It probably takes about a minute to record all of this. So that's pretty much it. So I'm asking for staff to look into it and see if we can, use this to increase accountability and transparency in the town of Grimsby.
Just further to that, Councillor Charwa, do you have any idea what the cost in Collingwood was to implement it? Because I'd really like to know that.
Well, I'm hoping that staff will be able to provide those numbers. And if you have if you have some other lobbyist registry that we can do cost effectively, then I would appreciate that as well. So I'm open to other alternatives as long as we get it going.
Yeah, well, the region has a perfectly good one in place, but
Let's bring that in.
they have it in place. So I would assume that most of the players that are in the registered at the region would be here. So I think that would be a better way to look into it, but let's continue the discussion. Councillor Howe.
Through you, Mayor. Collingwood happened because somebody got their hands caught in a cookie jar. And it was a very specific reason for it happening. Are you suggesting that we've got somebody's hands in a cookie jar? No. Okay, because I don't know of another small town that has a lobbyist, because we do not buy, lobbyists are very expensive. We do not buy enough material. We do not buy enough stuff. We don't buy enough toilet paper for, the lobbyist to come and sell, because the lobbyist really is a glorified salesperson. That's all they are. They're just selling something. So, it's just here, there, and there. And the materiality in it, it's not even there. It's not worth our time.
Councillor Vardy.
Thank you. So through you, Mr. Mayor, coming from the federal government, we have lobbyists. They are third-party professionals who work on behalf of organizations to try to influence government. In the past term, and so far this year, there's yet to be a lobbyist come to lobby on behalf of a third party. So I find this really unnecessary. Lobbyists deal with millions of dollars, and they lobby on behalf of maybe large organizations, like maybe, I don't know, I'm making this up, Steel Manufacturers of Canada might hire a professional lobbyist to go around to Industry Canada and, whomever, to say that, we need to do more around steel. So it's just not really in our bailiwick. It's not something that we'd ever come into contact here. So I don't see this as being useful. The people who come to us and want things, they come to us directly. They don't hire a third party. So I don't see any need for this. It's really outside of the scope of what we do.
Councillor Fraser.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. I echo both Councillor Howe and Councillor Vardy. There's 444 municipalities in Ontario. I think there's probably maybe 2 or 3 that might have this particular system set up.
There's actually 9 out of 443.
9, okay, thank you very much. And we do have a registry at the region, which we can piggyback off of that. But this seems like just another lot of work and wasted time for staff. Staff has got enough to do now. This is not certainly part of our strategic priorities, that's for sure. So I think we're just creating work for ourselves. In my term of council last time around and now, I have not seen or heard of a single lobbyist in this small town of Grimsby, and I don't think that we will ever will. So I think that we're just creating work for ourselves and creating work for staff. The Collingwood situation was unique, no question about that. There was some hanky-panky going on there. There was some fraud and a few other things, and that ended up with this particular register. I do not think that Grimsby needs a lobbyist register and create another lot of work, maybe another full-time position or part-time position and more cost for the town. I just don't think it's necessary. So that's my thought on it. I couldn't support this. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And just a point of clarification that Collingwood was actually forced to register because of the case that went against them for corruption. So, Councillor Bradzi.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. And to build on your point, I think this is something that's better handled by the upper tier of our municipality, and the region has it covered. And I just wanted to say, should West Niagara ever be realized that maybe that's something that they'll have to deal with, but I don't think this is something the small town of Grimsby needs to deal with.
Councillor Sharwa.
Through Mayor Jordan, thank you. So I just want to clarify who we're talking about lobbyists. So there's in-house lobbyists who are defined as individuals who are paid employees, partners, or sole proprietors of an organization who lobby on its behalf. This happens all the time, so I don't understand how, okay. But this in their definition, there's 3 types of lobbyists. This is who they define as their lobbyists. So that's the in-house lobbyists. There's the consultant lobbyists, individuals who lobby for payment on behalf of a client, another individual company, partnership, or organization. We also see that. Voluntary, unpaid lobbyists, individuals who lobby without payment on behalf of a business or profit entity for the benefit of the interests for the not-for-profit or organization. We also see that. So I don't know how you're getting that we don't see this, because we do. And I understand, I don't want to create more work, but I think that there should be some kind of an acknowledgement when a lobbyist, you've had communications. Like, it doesn't need to be a big, complex system, but I think our accountability and transparency needs to improve somehow. So if it's not Collingwood, then I would appreciate something, maybe a little less formal, maybe using Niagara Region, something. I would like to have some kind of documentation that the public could look up if they liked to.
Councillor Vardy.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, if we're using that particular definition, then basically everybody who comes through this door is a lobbyist. Everybody who made presentations tonight, they're lobbyists. You know, so it is transparent. We already have accountability. Every time a developer calls the planning department and asks a question, that's a lobbyist. So are we going to document every single thing we do? We'll never get anything done if we got to keep a record of, you know, so-and-so called today and we talked about zoning. Well, by your definition, that's a lobbyist. Like, we got to get on with the business. And these aren't lobbyists. This is our clientele. People who come to us and ask us for consideration of anything. By your definition, they're all lobbyists. So there isn't going to be anybody, people who want, you know, who write letters and they say they want our roads to be 40 kilometers. Well, they're lobbyists. So are we going to like make note of every single person that comes through the door or calls us for any questions? To me, it's not making sense to me. So I don't see this as increasing transparency or accountability. I don't see, you know, sort of in the definition of lobbyists that I'm familiar with, which is at a much sort of higher level with bigger stakes. We don't get that. So I just don't see, all I see this is more bureaucracy and slowing down the work of staff.
Councillor Korstanji.
Thank you, through Chair. I took a look a little bit at the regions, and it looked like they do have a staff member that deals with this. So that would possibly be an expense. My concern is inadvertently hurting the demographics of nonprofits and citizens that group together that need our help. I've dealt with a few incidents where groups of citizens have come together and, I've tried to help them, but they would be considered lobbyists, and then it would create an unnecessary barrier for certain organizations and more of our vulnerable demographics. I understand the point of it on the larger scale, but I think at the size that we are of a municipality, that I don't really think it's warranted. And if the region has one, I don't think I could support it, to be honest with you.
Councillor Bradzi.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. I completely lost my train of thought. But if we were to move forward with this and needing another staff hire for it, I think this would be detrimental to improving our communication with especially the businesses in this town. And as Councillor Kristanji just mentioned, a lot of the non-profits and causes. I think we need to make strides to improve our communication and transparency with these groups, not bottleneck communication.
All right, seeing no further speakers? Yeah, I have to read the resolution. Moved by Councillor Charwa, second by Councillor DeFlavio, whereas access to local government is an essential element of democratic governance, and whereas lobbying by honest and appropriate means is a legitimate activity, whereas it is reasonable for members of council and the public at large to know the nature and amount of legitimate lobbying of local government, and whereas Section 2239 of the Municipal Act 2001 authorizes the town of Grimsby to establish and maintain a lobbyist registry in which it shall be kept registrations and returns filed by persons who lobby the town of Grimsby's public office holders, and whereas Section 2211 of the Municipal Act 2001 authorizes the town of Grimsby to appoint a lobbyist registrar who is responsible for performing in an independent manner the functions assigned by the town of Grimsby with respect to the lobbyist registry, and whereas Section 3, 9, and 10 of the Municipal Act 2001 authorize the town of Grimsby to pass bylaws necessary to describe desirable for municipal purposes, in particular paragraph 2 of subsection 10.2 authorizes by bylaws respecting the accountability and transparency of the municipality and its operations, and whereas the town of Collingwood on January 20th, 2020 enacted a lobbyist registry bylaw, including a lobbyist code of conduct, and whereas the Collingwood model represents a principal and cost-effective approach to a lobbyist registry for smaller municipalities, therefore be it resolved that staff be directed to research and bring forward a lobbyist registry bylaw and lobbyist code of conduct based on the Collingwood model for the consideration of council before the end of Q4 2023. Recorded vote.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Howe.
No.
Councillor Korstanji.
No.
Councillor Bradzi.
No.
Councillor Charwa.
Yes.
Councillor DeVoli.
No.
Councillor Vardy.
No.
Councillor Frake.
No.
Councillor DeFlavio.
No.
Mayor Jordan.
No.
And that's lost.
All right, now we move to all right, Councillor Charwa's e-scribe voting. We have Councillor Charwa as the mover. We need a seconder. Councillor DeFlavio. Discussion? All right. Yeah.
Can you put it up on the screen?
Yeah, we're going to put the motion up on the screen. Councillor Charwa, you're welcome to read it if you'd like.
Would you like me to read it first or speak on it first? Okay, sure. Okay, I have it right here. Whereas Section 11.2 of the Town of Grimsby's procedural bylaw states, except where a recorded vote is requested, voting shall be a show of hands. And whereas the Town of Grimsby purchased eScribe to ensure the most efficient recorded voting system, and whereas council has reverted to using a less effective manual roll call in place of eScribe for recorded voting, therefore be it resolved that Section 11.2 of the Town of Grimsby's procedural bylaw be amended to state, except where a recorded eScribe vote is requested by a member of council, voting shall be a show of hands.
Councillor Sharwa.
So it's pretty self-explanatory. I've been requesting that we go back to eScribe as we started to at the beginning of our term. We've reverted back. And I'm not suggesting that for every minuscule kind of thing that we do eScribe, but when we're looking for a recorded vote, it would be nice if we could do simultaneous eScribe voting. And I don't mind, even if we, you kind of know the, which motions will probably require a recorded vote. So that's it. I'm just hoping that we could do that. Also, I've had, the public have asked me, even media, they'll ask me who voted for what because they can't hear the mic, they can't see it because it'll pan to Mayor Jordan or somebody might not have their mic on and they can't hear, or it'll be a show of hands and they have no idea who voted. So it's just a little bit more transparent. I'd appreciate the support on this.
Councillor DeFlavio.
Thank you, Worship. So further to what Councillor Sharwa just said, we had the notice of motion up on the projector. eScribe just allows people to see clearly. There have been times where people didn't understand clearly what was being discussed. I know that that's rare, but we have the system in place. It's just for when we have a recorded vote. I don't think it's an arduous task to have, because staff has to write it out anyway. A lot of times there are revisions from the original agenda to the final, what we're voting on. So putting it up in front of people and having people click yes or no is not any more difficult. If we want to do both, where people say yes and click online, whatever, I think it's just a more effective way for people to understand what they're actually voting on, because we don't always get to see it up on the board, and it might be something important. Usually if it's a recorded vote, it is an important issue that we're discussing that might be a contentious one. So having it in front of you to read it over quickly before you vote on it, I think is a good idea. I wouldn't support this if it was for every vote, just to be clear, but if it's on a recorded vote and it's not too much of a task for staff, I think it's an easy thing to do. If I could, I thought that was what we were doing. I thought at the beginning of council that was what we were doing procedurally, and then we kind of got away from it because there were some errors that happened. But if we can get back to it, I think it would be a good idea.
Councillor DeVoley, then Councillor Kostanji.
Yes, Mayor Jordan, I guess I just have a question for our staff. Is eScribe working to your satisfaction so that we could do this? I see nodding.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, we tested it out today. She is up and running. We're good to go.
Councillor Kostanji.
Thank you, through Chair. So just a quick question, because I'm locked out of it tonight. So in the case of people being locked out of it and we're in the middle of a meeting, what is going to be the backup plan?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, IT would likely have to step in on some of those, but I believe there has been some quick fixes, and I guess I would like to play with it between now and obviously when we start. But as the councillor said, we have the tools, and it can be done.
Councillor Vardy.
Yeah, just to reiterate, I'm also locked out. So even though I had my password reset this afternoon, it works on my phone. It doesn't work on my computer. So I think maybe we need a few of these glitches fixed before we move forward with it. I mean, I'm fine with the idea, but yeah.
Councillor Freg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I have no issue with this either, but there are times, like tonight, for example, if we were using eScribe, we'd have two councillors who couldn't vote. So I'd like somewhere in there, in that motion, that we resort back to the chair should we have a failure, a power failure, or IT goes down, or whatever the case might be, something that says we can go back to the chair and go back to a physical vote. I mean, I assume that's in there somewhere, just as a backup. If we can do that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, in addition, power failure, of course, is one thing,
Well,
but
yeah, I'm just extreme,
but if there's, for example, if midway through the meeting, somebody gets locked out of eScribe, you can always tell the clerk your vote, and we can input it manually into there, and it will still be reflected up on the screen for everybody to see. So that is another option.
Okay, so we have moved by Councillor Charwa, second by Councillor DeFlavio. The resolution's been read. All in favor? And that's carried. All right, now we're moving to notice of motions. First up, we have Councillor DeVoli. Can you read your notice of motion on keeping of farm animals?
Oh, you're making.
Thank you. Whereas the town of Grimsby has a bylaw in effect that prohibits the keeping of certain domestic farm animals in certain areas of the town, and whereas this bylaw does not address the keeping of domestic farm animals in all residential areas of the town, and whereas the keeping of domestic farm animals does attract wildlife into these residential areas, and whereas this wildlife may be dangerous to the residents and pets of the residents should there be encounters, and whereas the town should be proactive in reviewing this bylaw against best practices to ensure its relevance meets the town's present needs, and therefore be it resolved, the council directs staff to investigate and report on options available to council on the keeping of domestic farm animals throughout all residential areas of the town, including all related bylaws. I acknowledge that this notice of motion will be given consideration at the December 4th, 2023. No, I am requesting December 4th, 2023. Thank you.
Right, next notice of motion, we have Councillor Frake, access to adjoining property bylaw.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan. Yeah, I'm going to ask for this to be, for us to suspend the rules so I can speak to this tonight. Anyways, I'll read the motion. Whereas there has been ongoing concerns across the town of Grimsby with residents requiring access to a neighboring property for the purpose of necessary repairs on structures, and these neighboring residents refusing the access. And whereas there are situations in which urgent repairs are required on residential homes before the upcoming winter season, and whereas the town of Grimsby does not currently have an access to adjoining property bylaw, therefore be it resolved that staff be directed to draft and bring forward an access to adjoining property bylaw at the next council meeting. And I would like to suspend the rules for this tonight, and I'll tell you the reason why. I have one particular resident, property owner in town, that is trying to do some repairs on the side of their house, the eaves trough and the roof, and now the wall is beginning to cave in. They've been trying to get this work done for a number of years, and the next door neighbor, although there's no fence interrupting the property lines, will not allow them to put up a ladder just 3 feet into their property to go up on the roof to fix the roof, which they can't fix from the inside. They tried using a cherry picker, that type of thing, and they're now just frustrated, and their house, the side of their house is beginning to deteriorate quite badly. So I said I would ask the town and the council tonight to suspend the rules and get this passed. So I think it's a worthy cause, and I think it's a very reasonable request. So if I might do that, Mr. Jordan, Mayor Jordan.
All right, we have you as the mover to suspend the rules. We just need a seconder. Councillor DeVoli. Moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor DeVoli. Resolved that the rules of procedure be temporarily suspended by an affirmative vote of 2/3 to discuss Councillor Frake's notice of motion regarding an access to adjoining properties bylaw. Recorded vote.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Vardy.
Yes.
Councillor Korstanji.
Yes.
Councillor Bradzi. Sorry, he's left the building. Councillor Sharwa.
Yes.
Councillor DeVoli.
Yes.
Councillor DeFlavio.
Yes.
Councillor Frake.
Yes.
Councillor Howe.
Yes.
And Mayor Jordan.
Yes.
And that's carried.
Thank you.
All right, Councillor Frake, you can read your resolution.
I'll read it again. It's the access to adjoining property bylaw, and there are a number of, I'm surprised we didn't have this in our bylaws, but now hopefully we will. Whereas there has been ongoing concerns across the town of Grimsby with residents requiring access to a neighboring property for the purpose of necessary repairs on structures, and these neighboring residents refusing access. And whereas there are situations in which urgent repairs are required on residential homes before the upcoming winter season, and whereas the town of Grimsby does not currently have an access to adjoining property bylaw, therefore there be resolved that staff be directed to draft and bring forward an access to adjoining property bylaw at the next council meeting. Thank you.
Councillor Sharwa.
Through you, Mayor Jordan, thank you. Two questions, Councillor Frick and then Henry as well. Is this more an issue like the neighbor is just, they have a beef and they're not letting them on a property, or is there a reason they're not letting them on?
Yes, yes, and yes. This has been a long, ongoing neighborly situation where the neighbor has been very toxic, very insulting, very inflammatory.
Actually, I'm going to stop you there because I don't think we don't want to.
Okay, sorry. You get the message.
So
okay.
So I just think Henry should come up. Henry. Yeah, Henry, can you just come up with a little bit of background and clarification?
That's great, thank you. No, Henry, I just wanted to know, so that's what I kind of suspected, that there was a neighbor issue there. Is there any, like, for you, any issues as far as going onto personal property for, like, in this, like, I just want to get your input as far as whether this is helpful and also whether this is something that other municipalities do.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so the access to property would be covered under this bylaw specifically, given us to the powers given to us under the Municipal Act as bylaw enforcement officers. And then this would assist with these neighbor disputes because currently we don't have an access to adjoining property bylaw. So this leaves it up to property owners to civilly go after the neighbors and causing just a bit more undue hardship as a lawyer is quite expensive. This process would allow for a bylaw to be in place and them given proper notice and then being able to pursue that work without having to contact a lawyer and spend that money.
Councillor DeFlavio. Thanks,
Your Worship, through you. Councillor Frake, the reason why we don't have one is because we've never needed one. Sadly, you know, like, I know that because houses are getting closer together and there is more of a need to be on your neighbor's property to fix a roof or that it's going to be a more common issue. But I think it's sad that we're having this discussion that we have to create a bylaw that allows people to be neighborly. You know, but that being said, when it's for repair of a home or whatever, you can look at other, I've been looking at other examples and it's generally, if you need it to repair your home, it's not like you could just go on. It doesn't give people all access to their neighbor's property. It's for specific situations. So I support it. And I think, again, I'm sad that we have to put it in place. You know, the friendly by nature Grimsby that I grew up with, I think we're still 99.9% that community, but unfortunately you have to legislate for the 0.01%. And if we need to do it, we need to do it. Thanks.
Councillor Kurstanich.
Thank you, through Chair. My question's for Henry as well. Just making sure that both property owners will be protected under damage and or personal injury as a result of being on somebody else's property or having that other person on your property.
Speaking to damages specifically, the bylaw, as seen in other municipalities, will outline that the property needs to be returned to its original condition. Speaking on liability, that would be kind of a concern between the two neighboring properties, and probably an extension of the home insurance would be required in that situation, but that's just kind of going off the top of my head. But that is definitely an option we can look into, and making sure that they are covered liability-wise as well.
Just if we have no further comments, I just wanted to add that any bylaw that actually reduces the potential for litigation and gets issues fixed through bylaw in these not often occurring circumstances, I think that that's a good thing. So, any further questions? Oh, Sarah, Kim, you're there? Hi.
Hello. I just wanted to quickly raise a point. Some municipalities do have a right of entry permits, a permit system that mandates neighbors to provide. It's almost kind of a system for the town to be aware of some of the for the right of entries. So I don't know if that's something we want to discuss, whether we want to do this through a permit system.
Councillor Frake?
So the situation right now is that the winter weather is coming, and this particular homeowner's house is in serious disrepair, and they've been waiting a number of years, and I think maybe 2-3 years they've been trying to deal with this neighbor, and so they can't wait. I mean, if they have to go through another winter, then the whole side of their house might just fall down. I mean, it's a serious situation at this point in time, so it needs to be addressed very quickly. So however we need to do that, we need to do it, and if we can do it through this bylaw, that's great.
Councillor Sharwell.
Through you, Mayor Jordan, thank you. I know you're busy, so if we could avoid the permit system and just do as Councillor Frick's motion, I would prefer that as well.
Yeah, I didn't catch the seconder on your resolution.
You didn't have one.
Oh, okay. Councillor Vardy. All right. Or was it you?
Well, it was me the first time.
Yeah. All right, well, do you want?
Sure.
All right, so we have moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor Davoli, and the resolution, it's been read twice now. So all in favor? And that's carried. All right, now we're moving to section 16, correspondence. Need a mover and seconder for the correspondence. Moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor Vardy. Moved by Councillor Frake, second by Councillor Vardy. Resolved that the correspondence from the Niagara Region, Ontario Ministry of Finance, and Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee be received. All in favor? That's carried. All right, now we move to Regional Councillor Seaborn's update. Good evening, Michelle. Nice to see you.
Thank you, Mayor Jordan, and thank you for having me today. I just wanted to bring you a bit of an update. We're kind of in the middle of a lot of things, as I'm sure you are as well right now. But I wanted to remind you that those speed cameras are coming. In fact, the warning signs are now up. So if you're driving along Main Street, westbound, traveling east is Park Road. And if you're near Baker Road, you're also going to see the warnings. The warning signs are telling you the cameras are coming. They should be operational by mid-December. So this is where maybe Councillor Vardy might have an edge here by saying keep your speed down.
because I don't know what the difference is in the posted speed and what you do before you do get tagged. So just be aware that that's coming. As a second thought, I added today an update from Regional Director of Transportation, Frank Tassoni. He's very good to deal with, and when you've got any questions and you send them to me, he's got an answer usually in the same minute. This is actually addressed to Mayor Easton, Councillor Foster, and CAO that guy, you know, JT. Anyways, they always see me on this, and the reason they're getting it is because, of course, the new high school is actually in Beamsville. But we as councillors are all hearing all the concerns from our end as well. So they have had staff out there. They've taken a real good look and done some numbers and some counting, and they did find 3 things they want to deal with. One is pedestrian crossing. The other one is visual reviews of the traffic congestion, and then a whole review of the movements of traffic. Now, some of the stuff they found doesn't actually warrant putting in permanent things right now. However, they are going to be putting in a protected crossing, so that's where there's a traffic light and anybody going to it can push the button and it will give you a chance to cross. They are concerned about the number of people that are crossing the street there. And the major reason they're crossing the street there, unfortunately, is because we as parents are letting them off on the side of the road. So the region is going to be putting up no stopping, no parking signs on both sides to discourage people from letting their students off on the side of the road, which in turn is causing some problems. So there's a little bit more to it in the rest of the report if you want to take a look at it. The last part of my report has to do with the great news about budget. We all love budgets, and the regional budget has been in progress for the last 12 weeks. I think Mayor Jordan and myself can tell you it's been a long 12 weeks. We still have 6 weeks ahead of us, and it's a budget that we're going to have to really start cutting because it's got a few problems with things that we can't really fix. And one is the cost of inflation. It's up at 3.5% right now, which means all of our expenses, and I do mean all of ours. Everything we touch anymore is 3.5% higher than it was last year. Provincial legislation, which I'm sure you've heard about with that Bill 23, is still biting us all in the butt, and you're going to feel it even from your level with your planning. Then there's supply chain increases, and then departmental increases within the region. I've shown you what 2023 looks like, and I put that in there only so you got an idea, because a lot of the budget is based on your assessment. So the assessment is based, the numbers I give you are based on $100,000 of your assessment. Keep in mind, Grimsby's assessment on average is $400,000, which means each one of these numbers is multiplied by 4, and that gives you an idea of what these numbers are and where they go. So when you have wishes for either more police or more community services or more of anything, just remember nothing comes free and we're paying for it all. The other thing is I've gotten several calls, and I'm sure you have as well, about the special levies, which this year on our taxes were marked individually. Number one question is, when are we getting a bus? The answer to that is, unless the Council of Grimsby want a bus, you're not getting one. We have NRT, and we pay a minimal price for NRT. We have probably the biggest number of residents that use it. So even though there's some hiccups, we certainly have a system that is being well used. Water and wastewater management, I'm sure that if Brandon was here, he'd tell you it's probably one of the most important things either the municipality or the region does. It's our number one priority is to keep everyone safe, and clean water is the way to do it. As far as transit and waste management, that is Thursday's delight. That's the part of the budget that we will be speaking about, and we'll have better or more news for you at that time. So although these are numbers from 2023, nothing for 2024 has been determined yet. So we're working on it because we realize that every one of us pay taxes, and we want to keep them as reasonable as possible. So I'm open for any questions. If you have any that I might be able to answer. Seeing none? Pardon? Crosswalk at Casablanca. There hasn't been anything said about that yet. And I actually expected that Councillor DeFlavio would say, have you heard anything about Casablanca yet? Because I expected that from you. Perfect, okay. I was prepared just in case you hadn't. Okay, thanks very much.
All right, now we move to bylaws, section 18. Need a mover and seconder for bylaw 23-88.
Can we lift this item for separate consideration or discussion?
Yeah, it can be lifted. But let's get a mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Bradsey. Seconded by Councillor Sharwa. All right, Henry, can you just take the podium to provide some clarity?
For sure.
All right, so the bylaw as it stands now, if this is defeated, it moves back to our original bylaw?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct. It would be bylaw number 2162. That would originally not allow any discharge in any lands or waters of the town.
All right, so it'd be no discharge, but then we'd lose the penalties too, right?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct. So we lose everything that is in the current bylaw and revert back to the previous bylaw of number 2162.
All right, discussion. Councillor Sharwa?
Through Mayor Jordan, thank you. So obviously, I was one of the ones that was like the swing vote last time. I didn't know how I was going to voted against the firearms, which I still strongly oppose for safety, mainly. But I would say I'm I listen to residents, and I think that we can still allow people to hunt in a safe manner, and that would include, with the exception is just bow hunting on the south side of Ridge for people that own property there specifically. So it's a very small, segment of Grimsby, but I'm hoping that we can make that exception. So I don't know if we need to possibly request an amendment on this bylaw, if that's possible. So again, bow hunting, south side of Ridge, landowners only.
So they have to be landowners of that property?
Yes, correct.
All right. How would we enforce that? Can I ask you, Henry, how that would be enforced?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that enforcement would have to be, we'd have to revert back to our MPAC statements here at the office just to determine the correct identity of all property owners in these cases.
And would you find that would be difficult to enforce, or in your opinion?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we would have the capability to do these searches out on the road with our current software. So it would be as easy as a search through our City View system or GIMS in this case.
Okay, great. Councillor Vardy.
Are property owners on the mountain not able right now to take care of pests on their property, farmers? So they don't need a separate permission to hunt on their own land, right? Because farmers have the right to control pests.
Okay, just because you're not on mic, I think what the amendment is looking at sport bow hunting, not animal control. Councillor DeFlavio.
Thanks, Your Worship. Through you, I would take it a step further. I think bow hunting, I think there was a little bit of misinformation at the last meeting, not on purpose, but gun hunting, if you look at the Ministry of Natural Resources manual, gun hunting of deer in our area is not allowed anyway. And it was presented as if it was something that we could permit. That's out of our control anyway. So we were kind of talking about, we put bow hunting and gun hunting together. I think that if we had separated those two, it would have been a less of an argument. I think bow hunting and gun, people were concerned about people, the discharge of firearms. Bow hunting tends to be very short range. And so I think a compromise would be to allow for bow hunting. I do want to reiterate what I said at the last council meeting, that people are very cautious, and there is a management aspect. The Ministry of Natural Resources allows for a certain number of tags. People have to apply for those tags. It's not as simple as just going out and shooting deer, just to be clear. There are tags that are granted by the ministry. Only people who have tags can hunt. I think all bow hunting south of Ridge Road should be allowed with the permission of the landowner. Of course, with the permission of the landowner is a very important part of that. But I don't think that there's anybody out there hunting on this land without the permission of the landowner. People had concerns about proximity to trails and things like that. We can include that as well at your discretion. But I think that allowing bow hunting is a good compromise. And the fact that we talked about gun hunting was kind of a red herring. It wasn't something that we really could have allowed anyway, because you're not allowed to do it as a deer hunter. You're not allowed to shoot with a gun in this area. So we were talking about something that wasn't really something we could have granted anyway. So I think a change should be to allow bow hunting, and I think that's a good compromise personally. And Henry could probably suggest how we do that, Your Worship.
All right. Go ahead, Henry.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just to go on Councillor DeFlavio's point there, we could make the bylaw as allowing for discharge of bows south of Ridge for whatever council sees fit, if it's either the property owner and or agent or whoever they permit. So that would be a situation where clear direction would be required from council as to what they would want to see for those possible amendments. But just to ensure that procedurally, would this be able to come back to council with possible amendments?
All right. Councillor DeVoley.
Mayor Jordan, I'm not sure. I guess my question is to Henry, just to clarify something that one of our other councillors said this evening. So there are no Crown lands here in the town of Grimsby, let alone south of Ridge Road, which means anybody who wants to hunt via gun or bow must always have the permission of the landowner. So it's not that we have any rules that say only landowner. That is the general, I'll call it standard. You can only hunt on private property if you have the permission of the landowner. In effect, if you don't, you're trespassing. So that is the same, no matter what weapon you are using, I'll call it that. And I guess this proposal or this amendment is simply to allow bow hunting on private property, either by the landowner or with the permission of the landowner, which is standard wording, I understand, in the hunting community.
All right. Henry, did you want to comment on that? Or?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just to affirm that that would be correct. We would have that possibility to allow for bow discharge and write the bylaw as to see fit, and then just making sure that we get provided with proper direction as to the statements of property owners only, or property owners or the persons that they permit to enter onto land.
Councillor Howe.
Through you, Chair. 4.1, the exemptions, H. A farmer or their agent discharging a firearm or bow. Like, we're covering off bow here already, are we not?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So under those exemptions, a farmer has the right to protect either their livestock or property with the use of a firearm or bow, in this case, as they see fit to discharge an animal that is in the active use of either destroying or injuring crop or livestock.
So they're hunting something that needs to be taken care of.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So it wouldn't be hunting because they wouldn't be harvesting that meat. It would just be discharging the animal for the purpose of removing a pest. They would not be able to harvest that meat. For example, taking it and putting it in their freezer and eating it, for example.
I understand what you mean, but, you know, like maybe I was born just yesterday, but you take down, you know, a deer, you take down a turkey. It can be as much of a pest as you want, but someone's going to have that as dinner. You know, these guys don't, I'm sorry, guys, I know why you're here. They don't go out to just kill something, okay? Like, that's not a hunter. They go out and deal with an issue, and they come back. Now, if the animal is rabid, if it's got issues, then yeah, maybe not. But otherwise, they're not going to walk away from it. That's just not right, that you don't do it that way.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe the Ministry of Natural Resources has programs where they can retrieve that, but we can obviously look into that just to make sure that they have a program just so that it's not wasted.
All right, Councillor Korsanji.
Thank you, through Chair Henry. So if it was proposed that it's landowners only, bows only, and south of Ridge, are you able to adequately enforce that in your own opinion? Because I mean, obviously a lot of it's going to fall on you, and with the previous histories, I just want to make sure that you feel capable that that's something that you can handle.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we would effectively be able to enforce that.
Councillor Bradzi.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. My main question for you, Henry, is say that this amendment were not to proceed and the all-out hunting ban remained. Would that not be challengeable up the ladder, you know, at the province?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, at this current time, I don't have an answer for you on that. We are currently researching as we have received this question from a resident, but sorry, at this time, we don't have an answer for you.
Okay, thank you, Henry. I just want to put my 2 cents there. I think hunting is one of the most regulated activities in this country. To the best of my knowledge, I'm not aware of municipalities with an all-out ban on it. I think we're creatures of province and federal governments, and we should follow their regulations for the most part. I don't see a need to supersede anything on there. Allow bow hunting is a fair compromise that I think majority of people here are in support of, and I think that's good for now. But I also have kind of issues around the enforcement of the water ban and whether or not we might receive a challenge there. Not that I'm condoning it, but whether or not we'll be able to uphold these anyway.
Councillor Sharwa.
Through you, Mayor Jordan, thank you. So again, safety is super important to me. I don't personally feel like this will be a safety issue. I feel like the people that are, you know, hunting for deer take it seriously. And I would be the first person, I'll let you know, to come back to council and say, no, we're reversing this. If anything ever happened where people are coming here, having hunting parties, or doing anything that's putting the town at risk, I will be the first one, and I don't care if I get a million phone calls, I will be the first one here trying to reverse all of this. So I don't know if anybody has an issue with this, if this was something that we need to do on a trial basis or whatever, just for peace of mind, then I would be for that as well. So I just think it's the right thing to do, personally.
All right, seeing no further questions, the clerk just needs to clarify.
Yeah, just for clarity, earlier this evening, council did pass the minutes from the meeting where council said there would be no hunting, period. So those minutes were passed. So in order for us to work with your amendment, it has to be a reconsideration. So we'll need 2/3, because I think that's where Henry was alluding to.
Councillor Vardy?
Do we not have in our procedural bylaw that we can't have a reconsideration within 6 months of something being passed? I thought that was part of our procedural bylaw.
If the matter, I believe you're correct, but I think it's if the matter was if we were building something or something was being started, some procurement process had gone through, something like that. I think.
No, I think, I don't mean to correct you, Bonnie, but I believe it would, because I remember it being kind of contentious at the time. And that 6 months kind of sticks in my mind. And I guess I'd say all these people, you'll probably want to shoot me with a bow. But I'd rather just sit with this bylaw as we have it now and see how that goes and see what, if it really is problematic for the farmers up on the mountain. And then we can reconsider it in a year or 2 years' time. But we've had so much discussion about this. We keep going around and around and around. And I would just like to put this to bed for a year or two. And then, if it is problematic that farmers aren't able to deal with their issues on the mountain, then we can look at reconsidering. So.
Just looking up our procedural bylaw right now.
Mayor Jordan, just a quick question. If the bylaw hasn't been passed yet, is it a reconsideration, or is it because?
But the amendment has been passed. It was passed at in the minutes today.
So
because the non-hunting part was passed, it's come to bylaw. This is an amendment that was passed in the minutes, so it's changing the intent of the bylaw.
I understand that, but then what's the point of having this bylaw process at the end of the meeting where we pass bylaws if it's not a rubber stamp, right? It's to either pass or not pass the bylaws. So I just don't, and I'm just asking a genuine question. This is where we pass the actual bylaw. So we haven't actually passed the bylaw yet, so.
No, but at the previous meeting, there was a bylaw, the confirming bylaw, at the end of the previous meeting that put into effect that there was no hunting in the town of Grimsby. And so this amendment is changing the intent of the bylaw tonight, procedurally. And so we've ended discussion. So we moved by Councillor Charwa, second by Councillor Bradsey. that bylaw 2388 be amended to approve the use of bow hunting on the south side of Ridge Road by landowners only or permission of the landowner only. And it's a recorded vote, and it needs 2/3.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Sharwa.
Yes.
Councillor DeFlavio.
Yes.
Councillor Bradzi.
Yes.
Councillor DeVoli.
Yes.
Councillor Frake.
No.
Councillor Howe.
Yes.
Councillor Korstanji.
Yes.
Councillor Vardy.
No.
And Mayor Jordan.
No.
And that's carried.
Now we have bylaw 2388, moved by Councillor Bradzi, second by Councillor Sharwa. Resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaw 23-88 and that same be read a first time, considered and passed as amended. All in favor? Did that pass? I didn't.
see it.
Okay, we just need a show of hands again. I couldn't count fast enough. Councillor Bradzi, you asking for recorded?
That was for reconsideration.
That was for the amendment.
Yeah, to amend.
That was for permission to reconsider.
All right, Councillor Bradzi's asked for a recorded vote.
Okay. This is for the, okay. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Vardy.
No.
Councillor Korstanji.
No.
Councillor Howe.
Yes.
Councillor Frake.
What am I voting on again?
On the bylaw as amended.
No.
Councillor DeFlavio.
Yes.
Councillor DeVoli.
Yes.
Councillor Sharwa.
Yes.
Councillor Bradzi.
Yes.
And Mayor Jordan.
No.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's passed.
All right, the next meeting of council is scheduled on November 20th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. We will now be moving into closed session to discuss the settlement with regards of 37 Bartlett. I need a mover and seconder to go into closed. Moved by Councillor Bradzi, second by Councillor Korstanji.
Go home, guys. Go home. I bet you your butts are sore.
Order in the chambers.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that's not how, regardless of the outcome, that's not how the community does it.
My son's a hunter. We have to go.
Let's go.
You know, like.
Thank you, everyone.
Moved by Councillor Bradzi, second by Councillor Korstanji. Resolved that council proceed to closed session under Section 2392E of the Municipal Act, where closed meeting is held if the subject matter being considered is litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, and Section 2392F of the Municipal Act, where a closed meeting is held if the subject matter being considered is advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. All in favor to go into closed? That's carried. We're now in closed, so we'll All right, welcome back, everyone, to open session. We need a mover and seconder to receive the information provided and closed. Moved by Councillor Korsanji, second by Councillor Frake. Moved by Councillor Korsanji, second by Councillor Frake. Resolved that the information provided in closed session with regards to the 37 Bartlett settlement be received. All in favor? That's carried. All right, now we need a mover and seconder for the confirming bylaw. Moved by Councillor DeVoli, second by Councillor Howe. Moved by Councillor DeVoli, second by Councillor Howe. Resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaw 23-89 and that same be read a first time, considered and passed. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. The meeting is adjourned.